You're going to pay for all the pain and suffering you've caused. The reason? Because you couldn't stay beautiful. Dad, what are you talking about? I asked, my heart racing. My name is Michelle, and just moments ago, I felt a sense of achievement like never before. Today, I finally paid off my mortgage. It had been a long journey. My husband Daniel and I took out a loan right after we got married, a 35-year mortgage that we agreed to split equally. Fortunately, we managed to save a bit since the land belonged to my grandfather, and we had permission to build on it. But even with that advantage, paying back the loan was no easy task. Once our daughter Lisa, now a high schooler, was born, I found myself constantly juggling work, childcare, and housework, barely catching my breath. Daniel wasn't much help around the house, so most of the responsibilities fell on me. The only reason I could manage it all was that I worked from home. Daniel had initially promised to take on more of the financial burden, saying, "Just because you're home doesn't mean I'll dump all the work on you. I'll cover more of the finances." Trust me, that promise, however, only lasted for a few years. His attitude shifted about 3 years into our mortgage repayment, right after Lisa was born. "You've got it easy being home all day. I bet you take naps when you're not up at night with Lisa. The least you can do is get the housework done," he'd say, belittling my work-from-home job. To him, it was nothing more than a hobby, just a way for me to earn some extra pocket money, but the reality was far different. Deadlines, projects, and constant demands made working from home just as stressful as any office job, and balancing that with housework and taking care of Lisa, it was exhausting. Daniel never understood that. There were times when I seriously considered leaving him. Once, I even brought up divorce, but he tearfully apologized, saying he wanted to keep our family together, and we had Lisa. I didn't want to jeopardize her future or cause her emotional distress, so I held on, trying my best to keep things together. But today, after years of sacrifice, we finally paid off the mortgage. I thought this would be a new chapter for us, a fresh start. We were celebrating at a fancy restaurant, just the three of us, when Daniel leaned in with a strange look on his face. "So, you've paid off half the mortgage now," he said casually, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "Could you sign these divorce papers?" I stared at him, stunned. The moment we achieved something monumental as a family, he asked for a divorce. I had dressed up a little more than usual and was savoring a delicious meal. It felt like a well-deserved celebration. That's when Daniel took out the divorce papers. There had been no signs leading up to this moment. "Mom, congratulations on paying off the mortgage," Lisa beamed. "Thank you, sweetheart. Now, we need to start saving for retirement," I replied, feeling relieved but already thinking ahead. "Oh no, does that mean we can't splurge?" Lisa teased. "Don't worry, we'll still enjoy ourselves, but we also need to save for things like your future study abroad program." "Thanks, Mom, I'll help with saving too. Just let me know what I can do." Lisa and I were having such a hopeful conversation. Without the mortgage, we could save more quickly, and we were optimistic about how to use our money in the future. It was touching to see my daughter, now a high schooler, mature enough to talk about these things. And then, out of nowhere, Daniel dropped a bombshell. "You know, Michelle, I just don't see you as a woman anymore. The way you've been working so hard is honestly a turn-off. I can't deal with it any longer. I'm planning to marry this younger woman I've been seeing, so could you move out?" He said it casually, completely oblivious to the shock on Lisa's and my faces. "Her name's Amelia. Want to see a picture? Isn't she cute? She's totally different from you. Even when she's working, she looks like she's having fun, not stressed at all. She's a real social butterfly, unlike you." I stared at him, disbelief freezing me in place. "Wait a minute, Daniel. The reason I've been working so hard was to pay off our family's mortgage. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to pay half on a work-from-home salary? I was also busy with all the housework, something you never helped with." "Well, housework is a woman's job, isn't it? I'm just no good at it." "I wasn't good at housework either," I shot back, "but I did it for our family. We just paid off the mortgage. Shouldn't this be our moment to enjoy together? When I suggested divorce years ago, you begged me to stay because of Lisa." "I've changed my mind since then," Daniel replied, irritation creeping into his voice. Despite being in a fancy restaurant, the mood had soured completely. "What can I say? Younger women are just more attractive. Sure, I admired how you paid off the mortgage with your little work-from-home job, but that doesn't compare to youth." "That's terrible, Dad, that's awful," Lisa interrupted, her voice sharp with anger. "Apologize to Mom, that's so rude." Lisa didn't understand. Not yet, but Daniel just shrugged, turning to me. You get it, don't you? Michelle, women are like appliances, newer models perform better, and everyone wants them, right? Comparing me to an appliance? How rude, I snapped, still trying to process the cruelty of his words. Well, I don't have any feelings for you anymore, so it's only natural I say rude things, don't you think? As for not divorcing because of Lisa, sure, I said that at the time, but it was just an excuse. Daniel's words were hitting me like a train, and before I could fully grasp the weight of what he was saying, he continued, back then, I thought using Lisa's name would make you reconsider divorce, but in reality, I wasn't thinking about her at all. I just didn't want to let go of someone who'd do the housework for me. I stared at him, stunned. Can you really say that in front of Lisa? What kind of parent are you? He shrugged, completely indifferent. What does being a parent have to do with anything? I've always put myself first. This whole sacrificing yourself for your child's sake, that's just self-satisfaction, isn't it? Don't drag me into that. His words were unbelievable. Sure, Daniel had always been a bit selfish, but I thought he still cared for Lisa in his own way. I never imagined he would say something like this so openly in front of her. Look, I feel bad leaving a woman your age all alone, Michelle, just like you. That's why I'm giving you all our assets, Daniel said, as if he were doing me some great favor. Dad, what are you talking about? You literally just told Mom to leave, Lisa retorted, her voice full of disbelief. That's why I'm giving you the money, but in exchange, I'm taking the house. Consider it alimony, he stated casually, as if this made perfect sense. Alimony? Why would Mom owe you anything? Shouldn't you be the one paying for having an affair with a younger woman? Lisa shot back, furious. It's not that simple, Lisa, your mom is at fault too. Daniel smirked. Let's call it the crime of not staying pretty, huh? Oh, and let's not forget the crime of prioritizing her daughter over her husband. He laughed out loud, taking a sip of his drink as if it were some kind of joke. Lisa's eyes blazed with anger at his nonchalance, but he didn't seem to care in the slightest. His coldness was unbearable, and yet there he was, dismissing everything like it was just a game. I felt an eerie calm wash over me, or maybe my thoughts were just frozen in shock. I couldn't grasp what was happening, it was beyond comprehension. Daniel felt like a stranger, someone entirely alien to me. He said, I'm giving you all the money, but since we've been prioritizing mortgage repayments, there isn't much left. I'm keeping the house for myself. The alimony is for not staying pretty and for prioritizing Lisa over me. None of this made any sense. I was desperately trying to find the right words to address this bizarre, alien version of Daniel. I thought involving lawyers and our families might be the practical next step, but before I could speak, Lisa jumped in. By the way, Dad, is this young woman you're talking about the one who lives about 5 stations away? She asked, her voice steady. She's a bit older than me, right? You met her about 3 months ago, didn't you? Daniel looked taken aback. What? How do you know that? Lisa, ignoring his surprise, continued while glancing at her smartphone. My friend's dad got into a similar situation recently. A woman approached him, trying to steal his attention away from his wife. But unlike you, he and his wife saw through her intentions and kept her at bay. Daniel's face flushed with anger. Lisa, how can you talk to me like that? I'm just telling the truth, Lisa said calmly. I heard that the situation at my friend's house was tough for a while, but what's important is what comes next. It seems this Amelia targets men who are already in relationships. She likes the thrill of stealing them, rather than genuinely liking them. Daniel's face went pale as Lisa showed a few photos from her phone. Look at this. The first photo is of my club senior being approached by her. The second is of a classmate of mine. Both of them have girlfriends, and Amelia told them, look at me, not your girlfriend. What does that mean? I asked, confused. It means she enjoys taking other people's men, Lisa explained. She doesn't genuinely like them, she just enjoys the chase. Daniel seemed stunned, his face blank for a moment. Then, regaining his composure, he shot back defensively. No, Amelia isn't like that. Don't spread lies. I love her, and she loves me. Stop making false accusations just because you're a high schooler, he added, frustration evident in his voice. Even high schoolers should know a thing or two. Lisa remained unshaken. Dad, what about the reason for the alimony? The so-called sin of prioritizing your daughter and not staying pretty. What kind of joke is that? It's not funny at all. Daniel's anger flared. That's no way to talk to your parent. You're being disrespectful. Lisa responded firmly. and you're being really rude to Mom, claiming alimony for such bizarre reasons. The house is in Mom's name, right? And when it comes to the mortgage, Mom was the one who paid more, especially under the guise of child support. The contributions to household chores have been vastly different, too. If you really want a divorce, you should cover the cost of the house, which is in Mom's name. That includes the full price of the land. And the one who should leave the house after paying alimony and enjoying yourself with Amelia is you, Dad. At Lisa's words, Daniel seemed momentarily at a loss. Perhaps, deep down, he recognized he was on the losing end of this argument but was unwilling to admit it. He tried to counter Lisa's points, his desperation evident. You're just trying to avoid the divorce and making up stories. Amelia doesn't have a hobby of stealing husbands. She told me I was her destiny, Daniel blustered, his face reddening. Lisa, unfazed by Daniel's protest, continued to examine the menu with excitement, seemingly indifferent to his attempts at justification. Daniel's frustration grew. Amelia and I are bound by true love. You're just trying to interfere with that. You could even pay the alimony as an apology for that. Lisa responded with mock enthusiasm. Oh, really? I didn't realize you knew so much. Despite being just a high schooler, if you're so certain, why not involve a lawyer? Daniel stammered. What? You think you're right, don't you? But Mom won't accept such an absurd alimony claim. Yes, it's clear that Mom won't accept such a ridiculous claim, Lisa agreed. So let's do this. We'll finalize the divorce papers today, and we can deal with the alimony and property division with a lawyer later. It's settled then. We'll handle it when we get home. Let's focus on dessert for now, Lisa said, her tone final and calm. Despite being initially taken aback by Daniel's incomprehensible statements, his words gave me the courage I needed. Regardless of who Amelia was, I could no longer be with Daniel. If he couldn't live with us, then there was only one thing left to do. I took a deep breath and signed the divorce papers. The three of us then quietly finished our dessert and left the restaurant. The following day, we went to the city hall to submit the divorce papers. The divorce was finalized, and Daniel and I began living separately in weekly rental apartments. Of course, I stayed with Lisa throughout the process. We each hired lawyers, and began discussions about dividing the assets and handling the alimony. No lawyer would entertain Daniel's ridiculous claims about my appearance or my prioritization of our daughter. Daniel's liability was clear, and even he, who had dismissed Lisa and me so easily, appeared vulnerable when faced with legal scrutiny. Eventually, he conceded his faults. The divorce was finalized with Daniel giving up his claim to the property. The house was officially transferred to my name, a fitting consequence of his long-standing neglect of household responsibilities. The outcome was the best for Lisa and me. Daniel, however, continued his bravado, saying, I don't need any money. I've got Amelia. You can cling to that old house until you've paid off your 35-year mortgage. I'm starting a new life. Daniel's bravado didn't last. It turned out Amelia was exactly as Lisa had described, someone who enjoyed toying with men in relationships or marriages. As soon as Daniel and I separated, Amelia lost interest and dumped him. This unexpected turn of events left Daniel floundering, stripped of his assets and his so-called true love. He came back to me, desperate to reconcile. Michelle, I'm sorry, please forgive me. You're the only one for me. I'm the only one for you, right? I was unmoved. What are you talking about? I'm exhausted from doing housework for you. Besides, I don't think I'll stay beautiful in the future. I plan to prioritize Lisa and myself from now on. I can't risk being sued for alimony again. So reconciliation is out of the question. Absolutely out of the question. The blunt rejection must have been a severe blow to Daniel. Since then, I haven't heard from him. I've moved out of the weekly rental and am now happily settled in my own home. Mortgage paid off with just Lisa's and my efforts. Lisa is preparing for college entrance exams, and I'm committed to supporting her in every way I can.
I stand at my mother's grave, counting lies instead of flowers. 364 days of marriage, built on pretty words and hollow promises, all crumbling like the earth beneath my feet. The roses in my hands are starting to wilt, just like everything else Lucas touches. My name is Bailey, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Now I know better. Darling, we should head back to the house. Lucas's hand settles on my shoulder, warm and possessive. Your mother wouldn't want you standing out here all day. The laugh that bubbles up tastes bitter. Funny how everyone suddenly knows exactly what my mother would want. I shrug off his touch, watching his reflection in the polished granite. He's wearing the perfect grieving son-in-law expression, but his eyes keep darting toward the parking lot where his mother waits in her Mercedes. "Helen's prepared a lovely reception," he says, as if reading my thoughts. "Everyone's waiting." Of course they are. Helen Evans never misses an opportunity to play the gracious matriarch, especially now that there's a business empire up for grabs. I've seen the way she circles my mother's legacy like a vulture, dropping hints about helping me manage the company, about how overwhelming it must all be. "I need a minute," I tell Lucas, and he retreats with practiced understanding, always so careful to play his part in public. The funeral crowd has thinned, but I catch snippets of their whispers. "Poor Bailey," they say. "First her father, now her mother. Thank goodness she has Lucas and Helen to lean on." I dig my nails into my palms until the pain drowns out their voices. Uncle Paul appears at my side, solid and real, in a way that makes my chest ache. "Ready to face the wolves?" he asks quietly. "I heard them, you know." The words slip out before I can stop them. "Last night in the study, Lucas and Helen." Paul goes very still. "What did you hear?" "Enough." I smooth my black dress, buying time. Helen was angry about something, the timing being wrong. Lucas kept saying they needed to wait, that I wasn't ready to discuss the company yet. My throat closes around the rest. How Lucas had sounded nothing like my husband. How his voice had carried that same calculating tone Helen uses when discussing acquisitions. "Bailey," Paul starts, but I cut him off. "Did Mom ever tell you about her suspicions?" He hesitates, and in that pause, I hear everything my mother never said aloud. All those worried glances, the way she'd started reviewing company documents with increasing urgency after my engagement. "Your mother was very good at reading people," he finally says, "and very good at protecting what mattered." A burst of laughter drifts over from the parking lot. Helen's holding court by her car, Lucas at her side. The perfect mother-son duo, sharing some private joke while my mother lies cold in the ground. "I need access to everything," I tell Paul. "Every account, every contract, every piece of paper with the company's name on it." "You think they're planning something?" I turn to face him fully. "I think my husband married me for more than just love, and I think it's time I found out exactly what my mother was trying to protect me from." Paul studies me for a long moment, then nods. "Come by the office tomorrow. We'll start with the audit your mother ordered 3 months ago." "She ordered an audit?" "Yes." His smile is grim. "And made me promise not to tell anyone until until now." I look back at Lucas and Helen, their heads bent together in consultation. My mother's final gift wasn't just the company, it was a warning. "Tomorrow then," I say, straightening my spine. "It's time to see what my loving family's been hiding." The audit files spread across Paul's desk like a map of betrayal. Every highlighted transaction, every questionable transfer tells its own story. My coffee grows cold as I trace the pattern emerging from my mother's careful notes. "She knew," I whisper, more to myself than to Paul. "She knew, and she was building a case." Paul leans back in his chair, his face carved with shadows. "Your mother started noticing discrepancies 6 months ago. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers, all perfectly documented, but what? The authorizations look legitimate. They have your signature." My stomach drops. "That's impossible. I never." The office door swings open, and Helen glides in like she owns the place. Lucas trails behind her, his usual easy smile nowhere in sight. "Bailey, darling, we've been looking everywhere for you." Helen's voice drips honey, but her eyes are sharp as she surveys the papers scattered across the desk. "Shouldn't you be resting? It's only been 3 days since the funeral." I slide the most damning documents under a folder. "Just getting my bearings, Helen. The company won't run itself." "Oh, sweetheart." She settles into the chair beside me, uninvited. "That's exactly what we wanted to discuss. Lucas and I have been talking, and we think it might be best to consider selling." The room goes still. Even Paul stops pretending to organize his files. "Selling? My voice sounds distant to my own ears. Lucas steps forward, hands spread, in what's meant to be a placating gesture. It's just, you're dealing with so much right now. The grief, the responsibility. Nobody expects you to shoulder this burden alone. Burden? The word tastes like acid. This company is my mother's legacy. Was. Helen corrects softly. Was her legacy. And now it's time to think about your future. Our future. She reaches for my hand, but I pull away. Bailey, Lucas tries again. Be reasonable. You've never even worked in corporate management. The board members answer to me now. I stand, needing the height advantage. And I'm not selling. Helen's mask slips for just a moment, something ugly flashing in her eyes. You're being emotional. This is business. No, I say. This is family, and you're not it. Lucas flinches like I've slapped him. Good. I think. Paul interrupts smoothly. We should table this discussion until Bailey's had time to review all the necessary documentation. Legal requirements, you understand. Helen rises, straightening her designer jacket. Of course, we only want what's best for Bailey. She pauses at the door. Oh, and darling, don't forget the charity gala tomorrow night. The board members will all be there, and appearances are so important right now. After they leave, I sink back into my chair, hands shaking. Well, Paul says quietly, that confirms it. They're after the company, have been all along. I pull out my phone, scrolling through photos, until I find what I'm looking for. A picture from last year's Christmas party. Look at this. Helen, talking to James Morton from the board. 6 months before Lucas and I even met. Paul leans in. Could be coincidence. Like these forged signatures? Like the fact that Lucas proposed right after Mom's diagnosis. I laugh, and it sounds hollow even to me. Some coincidences feel an awful lot like conspiracy. My phone buzzes. A text from Chloe. Found something. Meet me at the usual spot. ASAP. I gather the audit files, my mind already racing ahead. I need copies of everything. And Paul? Don't let anyone else access these records, especially not Lucas or Helen. Bailey. Paul's voice stops me at the door. Your mother, she wanted to protect you from this, from them. I know. I think of Helen's perfectly manicured hands, reaching for my mother's company, of Lucas's practiced concerned expression. But she's not here to fight them anymore. I am. The elevator doors close on Paul's worried face, and I check my phone again. Whatever Chloe's found, I hope it's enough to start dismantling the careful web of lies my husband and his mother have woven around me. Because tomorrow night at the gala, I'm done playing the grieving daughter they can manipulate. It's time to show them exactly whose daughter I really am. Chloe's hands tremble as she slides the USB drive across the coffee shop table. You need to see this now. Her voice carries none of its usual warmth. I had to call in 3 favors to get these bank records. I plug the drive into my laptop, and my world shifts on its axis. Transaction after transaction, all perfectly disguised as legitimate business expenses, flowing from company accounts into a maze of offshore holdings. At the center of it all, a familiar name, Evans Investment Group. There's more, Chloe says, tapping the screen. Look at the dates. The first transfer was made 2 weeks before Lucas asked me to marry him. The most recent, yesterday. My coffee cup shatters against the floor. Several patrons turn to stare, but I barely notice. How much? Total? Almost 4 million. Chloe reaches for my hand. Bailey, there's something else. I found emails between Helen and Lucas from before you met. They planned everything. The walls of the coffee shop seem to close in. I remember Lucas's first accidental meeting at my mother's charity event. How smoothly he'd worked his way into my life, into my heart. My phone buzzes. Lucas calling again. I silence it, but not before noticing 6 missed calls from Helen. I have to go to the office, I say, standing abruptly. The gala preparations. Screw the gala. Chloe's voice cuts through my haze. You need to call the police. Not yet. The clarity of that decision surprises me. I need to hear him say it. The drive to the office passes in a blur. When I arrive, Lucas is waiting in my office, looking perfectly at ease behind her desk. "Where have you been?" He stands, coming around to kiss me, but I step back. "Helen's been trying to reach you about the gala arrangements. $4 million. He freezes. "What?" "That's how much you and Helen have stolen so far." My voice sounds strange, detached. "Was that the price tag on our marriage? Or did you charge extra for pretending to love me?" Color drains from his face. "Bailey, I can explain." "Please do. Start with the emails, planning how you'd seduce the grieving daughter of a dying CEO. Or maybe explain how you forged my signature on those transfers." "It wasn't like that." He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. "At first, yes, it was Helen's idea. The company was struggling. The laugh that escapes me sounds nothing like my own. There is no we, Lucas. There never was. I fell in love with you." He steps forward, desperate now. "Yes, it started as a plan, but I really do love you. Helen pushed me into it. But you just kept stealing anyway?" I pull out my phone, showing him the transaction records. Yesterday's transfer says otherwise. The mask slips entirely. His face hardens, becomes something I've never seen before. "What do you want?" "The truth." For once, he laughs. Ugly and sharp. "Fine. The truth? You were an easy mark. Daddy dead, mommy dying. So desperate for someone to love you that you never questioned anything. Helen said you'd be simple to handle, and she was right." Each word lands like a physical blow, but I force myself to stand straight. "And now?" His smile turns cruel. "Now you're going to sign over controlling interest in the company, or Helen will make sure everyone knows about your mental breakdown after your mother's death. How you've been making irrational accusations, becoming paranoid. The board already thinks you're unstable. It won't take much to convince them." I reach for my desk phone, hitting the speaker button. "Did you get all that, Paul?" Lucas whirls around. Paul stands in the doorway, phone in hand, recording. Behind him, Helen's face has gone chalk white. "Every word," Paul says quietly. Lucas lunges for the phone, but I'm already backing away, watching their carefully constructed world begin to crumble. "Bailey," Helen starts, but I cut her off. "The police are on their way. I suggest you both start practicing your explanations." I walk past them, head high. "Oh, and Helen, don't worry about the gala. I'll make sure to tell everyone exactly why you couldn't attend." The police interview room feels smaller with each passing hour. Detective Martinez slides another photo across the table. Surveillance footage of Helen entering the company building late at night, 3 weeks before my mother's death. "Mrs. Evans claims she had your authorization," Martinez says. "Says you've been making rash decisions since your mother's diagnosis." My fingernails dig into my palms. "And you believe her?" "What I believe doesn't matter. What matters is the board meeting she's called for tomorrow morning." The words hit like ice water. Paul bursts through the door before I can respond. "Bailey, don't say another word." "Detective, this interview is over." Outside, the evening air does nothing to clear my head. Paul grips my elbow, steering me toward his car. "Helen's been busy. She's convinced 3 board members you're emotionally unstable." "She can't. She already has. The emergency meeting is to vote on temporary leadership during your recovery period." His voice hardens. "They're going to try to force you out." My phone chirps, a text from Lucas. "It doesn't have to be this way. Meet me at home, please." Home. The word tastes like ash now. "I need to get something from the house," I tell Paul. He starts to protest, but I cut him off. "I know what I'm doing." The house is dark when I arrive, except for my mother's study. Lucas waits there, looking perfectly at ease in the room where I first kissed him, where he proposed, where my mother. "You're sitting in her chair," I say. He doesn't move. "Bailey, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Helen's offering a generous settlement. Walk away now. Keep your dignity intact." My dignity. Something burns behind my eyes. "You married me for money, stole from my family, and now you're threatening my dignity." I'm trying to protect you. He stands, agitated. You think you know everything? Your mother wasn't the saint you imagine. Ask yourself why she really ordered that audit. Why she was meeting with corporate raiders behind closed doors. The room tilts slightly. What are you talking about? She was selling pieces of the company in secret. Helen found out, tried to stop her. Everything we did was to save this company from your mother's mistakes. I moved to my mother's desk, running my fingers along the wooden edge. You're lying. Check the safe. Behind the painting. The proof's all there. My hand freezes on the desk. How do you know about the safe? Lucas's face changes, just for a moment. A flash of something ugly, before the mask slips back into place. Because, a new voice says, I told him. Helen stands in the doorway, elegant as ever in her designer suit. Your mother got sloppy near the end. Started keeping records of her little side deals. We couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built. We? The pieces click into horrible place. You were business partners? Until she decided to go ethical on us. Helen's laugh is soft and cruel. Started talking about legacy and family values. She would have ruined everything. My fingers find the button under the desk. The one my mother showed me years ago. A silent alarm, she'd said. Just in case. The audit, I say slowly. She wasn't investigating Lucas's transfers. She was building a case against you. Smart girl. Helen moves closer. But not smart enough. Sign the company over tomorrow, or every dirty secret your mother tried to hide goes public. Her reputation, your family name, all of it burns. You really think you've won, don't you? I lean against the desk, feeling the weight of my mother's letter opener against my palm. But you forgot something important. And what's that? I smile, hearing sirens in the distance. My mother taught me to record everything. The study door bursts open. Detective Martinez leads the charge, officers flooding in with weapons drawn. As they read rights and snap handcuffs, I pull out my phone, stopping the recording app. Bailey, Lucas calls as they lead him away. You don't understand what you're doing. But I do. For the first time since my mother died, I understand perfectly. I pick up her framed photo from the desk. I promised to protect your legacy, Mom. I just didn't know from whom. The bail hearing takes less than an hour. I watch Helen and Lucas walk free, their lawyer's smug smile burning into my back as I leave the courthouse. Paul catches up to me on the steps. They won't stay free for long, he says. The evidence isn't enough. I keep walking, my heels clicking against marble. Helen's already spinning the story. Poor grieving daughter. Imagining conspiracies, desperate for someone to blame. My phone buzzes, another reporter asking for comment. Third one today. I silence it just as Chloe pulls up in her car. Board meeting in 30 minutes, she says as we climb in. And Bailey, it's bad, really bad. The executive floor is unusually quiet when we arrive. James Morton, head of the board, intercepts us before we reach the conference room. Bailey, a word. His office smells of expensive leather and victory. Helen's legal team contacted us this morning. They're filing a countersuit, defamation, harassment, malicious prosecution. Let them. They have documentation suggesting your mother was involved in insider trading. He slides a folder across his desk, dating back 5 years. My hands shake as I open it. Emails, contracts, meeting notes, all carefully selected to paint my mother as a criminal. These are fake, are they? James leans forward. Because Helen has witnesses willing to testify, respected business associates, who'll swear your mother was cutting illegal deals for years. And let me guess, this all goes away if I step down. The board would consider it a gesture of good faith. I stand, the chair scraping against hardwood. The meeting starts in 10 minutes. I'll give you my answer then. Paul and Chloe wait outside, faces grim. How bad? Paul asks. They're trying to destroy her reputation. My voice cracks. Everything she built, everything she stood for. Bailey. Chloe grabs my arm. Look. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I see Helen talking quietly with board members. Lucas stands nearby, that familiar charming smile in place. They've already won them over. I need 5 minutes, I tell them. Heading for my mother's office, our office. Inside, I sink into her chair, breathing in the lingering scent of her perfume. The photo on her desk shows us at my wedding, both of us smiling, neither knowing the snake we'd welcomed into our family. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. Miss Turner? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. My name is Sarah Chen. I worked with your mother's private investigator. The world stops. What private investigator? The one she hired 6 months ago to investigate Helen Evans. I have files, recordings, photographs, financial records, things your mother couldn't access officially. My heart pounds. Why are you calling now? Because Helen's people just offered me money to destroy everything. A pause. Your mother was kind to me once. I'd rather give you the truth. I checked the time. 3 minutes until the meeting. Where? I'm parked behind the building. Blue sedan. I text Paul. Stall the meeting. Trust me. The service elevator takes me to the parking garage. A middle-aged Asian woman stands beside a blue car, holding a thick envelope. Your mother knew, she says, handing it over, about Helen's past companies, the bankruptcies, the fraud charges that disappeared. She was building a case, but she ran out of time. Inside the envelope, I find what I need. Proof of Helen's pattern, her history of corporate takeovers and destroyed lives, and something else. Surveillance photos of Helen meeting with my mother's doctors weeks before her condition suddenly worsened. There's more, Sarah says softly. About your mother's last days. Cold certainty settles in my chest. Send everything to this address. I hand her my lawyer's card. And Sarah, thank you. The elevator feels different going up. I'm my mother's daughter, after all. And it's time to show Helen Evans exactly what that means. I walk into the board meeting, 10 minutes late. Helen's smirk fading as she sees my face. I don't look at the board members, or Paul, or even Lucas. I look straight at her as I set the envelope on the table. So, I say quietly, shall we discuss my mother's last days, Helen? The surveillance photos scatter across the boardroom table like playing cards. Helen's face remains composed, but her knuckles whiten around her water glass. These meetings with Dr. Richards, I say, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. They happened 2 weeks before my mother's condition suddenly deteriorated. Lucas starts to stand. Bailey, you can't possibly. Sit down. The command comes from James Morton, his earlier smugness replaced by something harder. Mrs. Evans, explain these photographs. Helen's laugh sounds brittle. Really, Bailey? Accusing me of what? Murder. This is exactly the kind of unstable behavior we've been concerned about. I slide another document forward. Dr. Richards made a very large deposit the day after my mother's death. The money came from one of your shell companies. The room goes deadly quiet. Paul moves closer to the door, blocking it. Helen's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear, but she waves him off. You want to play this game? Her voice drops to a whisper. Fine. Your mother was weak, sentimental. She was going to destroy everything we'd built, expose our arrangements with overseas investors. I simply accelerated the inevitable. Helen! Lucas looks horrified, but I see the calculation behind his shock, always performing, even now. Oh, stop pretending, darling. Helen's mask finally slips completely. You knew exactly what was happening. Why do you think I had you marry her so quickly? We needed control before she died, and you played your part perfectly. The board members shift uncomfortably. James Morton reaches for his phone, but Helen's next words freeze everyone in place. Bailey, dear, you have exactly 30 seconds to withdraw these accusations and resign, or the world learns how your father really died 10 years ago. The air leaves my lungs. What? Your mother's hands weren't entirely clean. That car accident, insurance fraud gone wrong. I have proof, documents, witness statements, everything. Your precious legacy dies today, one way or another. My carefully constructed plan crumbles. I see the board members' expressions changing, doubt creeping in. Even Paul looks uncertain. Time's up, Helen says softly. What's it going to be? Lucas moves to my side, touching my arm. Bailey, please, think about what you're doing. Some things should stay buried. I look at his hand on my arm. The wedding ring I once thought meant something. Behind him, Helen's triumphant smile grows. They've orchestrated everything. From the beginning. My marriage, my mother's death, maybe even my father's. Every choice I thought was mine was just another move in their game. You're right, I whisper. Some things should stay buried. I reach for the resignation letter James prepared earlier. Helen relaxes slightly, victory in her eyes. Instead of signing, I pull out my phone and press play. Helen's voice fills the room. You knew exactly what was happening. Why do you think I had you marry her so quickly? We needed control before she died. No. Helen lunges for the phone, but Paul catches her arm. That's not all, I say, my voice shaking. The police are executing search warrants right now. Your home, your office, Dr. Richard's clinic. And every board member here will receive copies of my mother's complete investigation files within the hour. You'll destroy everything, Lucas warns. Every reputation, every relationship. You already did that. I turn to the board. My resignation letter, gentlemen. I think you'll find it interesting reading, especially the part about Helen's involvement in 3 other corporate takeovers that ended in mysterious deaths. Helen breaks free from Paul, her composure shattered. I'll destroy you. No, I stand straighter, my mother's strength flowing through me. You'll destroy yourself. The only question is how many people you take down with you. The boardroom doors burst open. Detective Martinez leads a team of officers inside, warrant cards displayed. Helen Evans, Lucas Evans, you're under arrest for conspiracy and corporate fraud. Martinez pauses. Among other charges. As they're led away, Helen's threats echo through the hallway, but I don't move, don't speak. I stand at the head of my mother's table, in my mother's company, and let the weight of victory settle over me like a shroud. Some things should stay buried, but some truths demand to be heard, no matter the cost. The courthouse steps swarm with reporters as Helen and Lucas arrive for their arraignment. I watch from across the street. Chloe's hand steady on my arm. Even now they play their parts perfectly. Helen dignified in designer black, Lucas appropriately somber. Ready? Paul asks quietly. Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Bailey. Lucas's voice, desperate and familiar. Meet me in the park. 10 minutes. There's something you need to know about your mother. Chloe grabs my wrist. Don't. But I'm already moving. Some truths demand witnesses. The park bench where Lucas proposed sits empty, except for him. No Helen, no lawyers. He looks smaller somehow, less polished. Make it quick, I say, staying standing. Your mother knew what Helen was planning. He runs his hands through his hair. That gesture I once loved. She approached me 6 months ago, offered me immunity if I'd testify against Helen. The world tilts slightly. What? I refused, told Helen everything. That's when he stops, swallowing hard. That's when Helen decided your mother had to go. And you let it happen. I loved you. He reaches for my hand, but I step back. Maybe not at first, but I did. I couldn't betray my mother. No. You just betrayed your wife instead. Movement catches my eye. Helen emerging from behind a tree, her lawyer close behind. Of course, one final manipulation. Bailey, Helen calls out. You're making a terrible mistake. Think about what this trial will do to your father's memory, to your mother's reputation. Interesting threat, considering what just arrived at the district attorney's office. I check my watch. About 20 minutes ago, actually. Helen's smile falters. What are you talking about? Remember Sarah Chen, the investigator? She found something fascinating in my mother's safety deposit box. Video recordings, years of them. Every meeting, every threat, every scheme. You're bluffing. Mom knew what you were, Helen. Right from the start. She played you, documented everything, built an airtight case. The only thing she didn't count on was you getting to her before she could finish it. Lucas steps forward. Bailey, please. The videos show everything, including you, Lucas, admitting to Helen that Mom offered you immunity, proving premeditation. Helen's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear, but she waves him off. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy everything? I laugh, and it sounds like my mother's. That's the point. But here's the deal. Confess. Full confession, all of it. Do that, and the videos stay private. Or what? Or in 1 hour, every major news outlet receives copies. Your choice. Helen's face contorts. You stupid girl, you think you've won. I still have proof about your father's accident. I'll burn your whole family's legacy to the ground. No, Paul's voice rings out as he approaches with Detective Martinez. You won't. Martinez holds up his phone, recording. Chloe steps out from behind a tree with her own phone raised. Conspiracy, blackmail, admission of premeditated murder. Martinez lists off. Want to add anything else, Mrs. Evans? Helen lunges for me, all pretense of dignity gone. You orchestrated this entire meeting. I learned from the best. I step back as Martinez restrains her. You taught me how to play the long game, Helen. Too bad you never learned when to stop playing. Lucas doesn't resist when they cuff him. Bailey, he calls out. For what it's worth, I really did love you. I watch them lead Helen and Lucas away, their protests fading into the morning air. Paul squeezes my shoulder. Your mother would be proud, he says softly. But I'm not sure pride is what I feel. Standing in the park where my marriage began, watching it end in handcuffs and sirens, I realize revenge tastes different than I expected. Not sweet, not bitter, just final. Let's go, I tell Paul and Chloe. We have a company to run. Behind us, Helen's threats echo off marble courthouse walls, but they can't touch me anymore. Some debts can only be paid in truth, and today, the bill came due. The verdict takes less than 2 hours. I watch Helen's face as guilty echoes through the courtroom. Once, twice, 7 times total. She doesn't look at Lucas when they lead him away, his separate plea deal, securing a lighter sentence, but destroying their final connection. Outside, reporters shout questions about justice and closure. I push past them, letting Paul handle the statements. My mother's letter burns in my pocket, discovered this morning in a folder marked for after. The office is quiet when I arrive. Sarah Chen waits by my mother's desk, a familiar safety deposit box in her hands. There's something she wanted you to see, Sarah says, setting down the box. When it was over, inside, I find a single USB drive and a handwritten note. For my daughter, who always knew the difference between revenge and justice. The video plays, and my mother's face fills the screen. She looks tired but determined, recording this in her final days. Bailey, if you're watching this, then Helen and Lucas have shown their true colors. And knowing you, you've already fought back. She smiles. That fierce expression I remember from boardroom battles. But revenge isn't why I built this case. It was never about punishing them. It was about protecting you, protecting everything we built together. My throat tightens as she continues. There's one last thing you need to know. The company's overseas accounts. I've hidden something there. Not money, proof, evidence of every person Helen has destroyed over the years. Their stories, their losses, all of it. Use it wisely. Some of them might still need justice. The screen flickers. But Bailey, don't let this consume you. Helen's greatest victory would be turning you into someone like her, someone who sees people as pieces to be played. You're my daughter. You're better than that. The video ends. Sarah quietly leaves as I sit at my mother's desk, running my fingers over the worn leather armrests. My phone buzzes, a text from Lucas's prison email account. I meant what I said about loving you. I delete it without responding. Some wounds don't need closure. They just need to heal. Chloe appears in the doorway. The board's waiting. They want to discuss the company's direction. Tell them 5 minutes. Alone again, I open my mother's last drawer, the one I've avoided since her death. Inside, photos spill out. My father teaching me to ride a bike. My mother at my college graduation. Family moments that Helen tried to taint, but couldn't touch. The last photo shows my mother and me in her office, both laughing at some forgotten joke. On the back, she'd written, "Remember who you are." I pin it to the wall, next to the company's mission statement. Then I pull out my phone and dial a number I've been holding on to. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Bailey Turner. I found evidence about how Helen Evans destroyed your family's business. I'd like to help make it right, because that's the thing about legacies. They're not just what we inherit, but what we choose to do with them." I grab my briefcase and head to the boardroom, leaving my mother's office door open. Through the windows, sunlight streams across the desk where Helen once plotted, where Lucas once lied, where my mother built something worth protecting. Paul meets me halfway. "Ready?" "Almost." I pause, looking back at my mother's photo. You know, she never wanted revenge. She wanted justice, not just for us, but for everyone Helen hurt. And now we finish what she started. I straighten my jacket, feeling the weight of her letter against my heart. But this time, we do it my way. The boardroom doors open, and I step through, leaving revenge behind and carrying justice forward. Because some legacies aren't about getting even. They're about making things right. And that's a story worth telling.
I never thought my life would unravel over a simple text message. My husband Ethan's face was ghostly pale as he stared at his phone, his hand trembling slightly. I had just walked through our front door after a long day at the dental clinic, and something was clearly wrong. My name is Harper, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Sure, being a stepmom to a 19-year-old had its challenges, but Jake and I had found our rhythm over the years. At least, I thought we had. "Harper, we need to talk," Ethan said, his voice uncharacteristically shaky. He was still in his work clothes, his usually pristine blue tie loosened around his neck. "It's about Jake." I dropped my purse on the kitchen counter, my stomach already nodding. "What's wrong? Is he okay?" He's fine," Ethan said quickly, running his hands through his graying hair. "But he needs our help. There's this producer in Los Angeles who's interested in his music. It's a huge opportunity, but he needs $15,000. By the end of the week." The amount hit me like a physical blow. 15,000? For what exactly? Ethan paced our kitchen, his shoes clicking against the hardwood floors. "Studio time, production costs. This producer, he's worked with some big names. Jake says it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Something in Ethan's voice set off alarm bells in my head. I'd heard that desperate tone before, usually when he was hiding something. "Have you met this producer? Has Jake sent us any details about the studio?" "Harper, please," Ethan said, stopping his pacing to face me. "This is Jake's dream. We can't let him miss out because we're being too cautious." I opened our refrigerator, mostly to have something to do with my hands. "That's a lot of money, Ethan. Money we set aside for the clinic's new equipment." I know. But Jake's talented. You've heard him play. This could be his big break." I had heard Jake play. He was good, really good. But something about this felt off. "Can I talk to Jake about it? Maybe we could video chat with the producer together?" Ethan's reaction was subtle but telling, a slight stiffening of his shoulders, a quick dart of his eyes toward his phone. "Jake's really stressed about this. He doesn't want too many people involved, doesn't want to spook the producer." "Spook the producer?" I closed the refrigerator door harder than necessary. A legitimate producer wouldn't be spooked by parents wanting to verify an investment in their son's future. "You don't understand the music industry," Ethan snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "I'm sorry, Jake trusts me with this. I need you to trust me too. I studied my husband's face, the face I'd woken up to for the past 7 years. There was something there, something beyond parental concern. Fear, maybe? Or guilt? I'll think about it, I said finally. But I want to talk to Jake first. Ethan's phone buzzed again. He checked it quickly, his face tightening. Jake's asking for an answer tonight. The producer has other artists interested. Tonight? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's not how this works, Ethan. No legitimate business deal works like this. Sometimes you have to take risks for family, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. I watched as he walked out of the kitchen, his shoulders hunched, still clutching his phone. The house felt suddenly too quiet, too full of secrets. I pulled out my own phone and opened my messages with Jake. His last text to me was from 3 days ago, a meme about dental hygiene. Nothing about a producer, nothing about needing money. My finger hovered over the call button. Something told me this wasn't really about music at all, and I had a sinking feeling I was about to uncover something that would change everything. I couldn't sleep that night. Around 3 in the morning, I found myself sitting in our home office, staring at the family photos on the wall. One in particular caught my eye, Jake at his high school graduation, Ethan's arm around his shoulders, both of them beaming. I remembered taking that photo, feeling like we were finally becoming a real family. The next morning, I met Lily at our usual coffee spot before work. She was already there, her laptop open, probably working on another one of her true crime podcasts. The moment I sat down, her eyes narrowed. "You look like hell," she said, pushing a coffee toward me. "Spill." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. "Ethan wants to give Jake $15,000 for some music producer in LA. "Excuse me?" Lily closed her laptop. "The same Jake who borrowed your car last summer and returned it with a mysterious dent?" "The very same." I took a sip of coffee, wincing at the memory. "But this feels different." "You should have seen Ethan last night, Lily. He was practically shaking." "Have you tried calling Jake directly?" 3 times. Straight to voicemail." I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. "But look at this." I opened Jake's Instagram profile. His latest post was from 2 days ago, a video of him playing guitar at some local coffee shop. The comments were full of heart emojis and praise, but nothing about a producer or record deal. "Something's not adding up," Lily said, scrolling through the feed. "And 15,000 is way too much for initial studio time. Trust me, I know plenty of musicians from the podcast circuit." My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan, "Did you think about it? Jake needs an answer today." "God, the pressure they're putting on you," Lily muttered, reading over my shoulder. "Harper, remember when Ethan got weird about those phone calls last year?" I did remember. For about 2 weeks, Ethan had been taking calls in private, always stepping outside or into another room. When I asked about it, he said it was work-related stress. I'd believed him then, but now. "I should get to the clinic," I said, standing up. "I have patients waiting." "Harper." Lily grabbed my wrist. "Promise me you won't write that check without doing some digging first." "I promise." At work, I tried to focus on my patients, but my mind kept wandering. Between appointments, I searched online for music producers in Los Angeles. There were hundreds. Without a name or studio, it was impossible to verify Jake's story. Around lunch, my phone lit up with a text from Jake. "Hey Harper, Dad told you about the producer thing? It's legit, I swear. This could change everything for me." I stared at the message. It was the first time he'd reached out directly about the money. Something about the timing felt calculated. I typed back, "Can we video chat about it? I'd love to hear more details." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "In meetings all day. But trust me, okay? You've always supported my music." That hit hard. I had always supported his music. I'd been at every local show, helped him buy his first electric guitar, even convinced Ethan to let him defer college to pursue music. But this felt like manipulation. As I was about to respond, my receptionist knocked on my office door. "Dr. Winslow? There's a man here asking for you. Says his name is Marcus Reed?" I froze. I'd heard that name before, Ethan's old friend from college. They'd had some kind of falling out years ago, but Ethan never told me why. "He says it's about your husband," my receptionist added, looking concerned. My heart started racing. Marcus showing up now couldn't be a coincidence. I glanced at my schedule, 2 more patients before my afternoon break. "Tell him I can meet him in 45 minutes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's a coffee shop across the street." As my receptionist left, I looked down at my phone again. Jake's message stared back at me, along with Ethan's earlier text, demanding an answer. Whatever was really going on, I had a feeling Marcus Reed was about to blow it wide open. Marcus Reed wasn't what I expected. He sat across from me at the coffee shop, methodically stirring his Americano. Looking more like an accountant than someone carrying explosive secrets. His tie was perfectly knotted, his shirt crisp, but his eyes held something heavy. "I've been debating whether to come forward," he said, placing an envelope on the table between us. But when I heard about Jake asking for money, I knew I had to act. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter dated 3 years ago, before Jake had even moved in with us. The paper was creased, worn at the edges, like it had been read many times. "Ethan," it began, "the debt collectors are getting aggressive. I can't cover for you anymore. Either pay what you owe, or I'll have to tell them everything." The coffee shop's ambient noise faded away as I read further. Numbers jumped out at me: 40,000 in gambling debts, threats of exposure, desperate promises to pay. My stomach lurched. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Marcus leaned forward. "Because Jake found out about it 6 months ago. He's been using it to manipulate Ethan ever since." The pieces started falling into place: Ethan's mysterious phone calls last year, his increasing anxiety. The way Jake had suddenly become more demanding. I thought about the dent in my car, the missing money from our vacation fund that Ethan had blamed on bank fees. My phone buzzed. Another text from Jake: "Did you make a decision about the producer? Time's running out." "There is no producer, is there?" I asked Marcus. He shook his head. "Jake's talented, but he's also his father's son. He learned manipulation early." "Does Ethan know you're here?" "No." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me a series of texts. "But Jake does. He's been threatening to expose Ethan's gambling past to you for months." "The 15,000? That's just the latest demand." I stood up abruptly, needing to move. "I need to get back to work." "Harper," Marcus called after me. "There's something else you should know. The gambling didn't stop 3 years ago." I froze. "Check your joint accounts," he said quietly. "Especially the clinic's investment fund." The walk back to my clinic felt like moving through fog. I pulled up our banking app, hands shaking so badly I had to try the password twice. The investment account balance loaded: $3,247. Last month it had been over 20,000. My receptionist looked alarmed when I burst through the door. "Dr. Winslow? Your next patient." "Cancel the rest of my appointments," I managed to say. "Family emergency." I drove home in a daze, Marcus's letter burning a hole in my purse. When I walked in, I found Ethan and Jake in the living room, heads bent together over Jake's laptop. They jumped apart when they saw me. "Harper?" Ethan's face went pale. "Why are you home early?" "I had an interesting conversation with Marcus Reed today," I said, watching their reactions. Jake's face hardened, but Ethan looked like he might be sick. "Whatever he told you," Jake started, but I cut him off. "Stop." My voice was ice. "The producer story? That's over. What I want to know is how long you've been blackmailing your father. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake's competent facade cracked, just for a moment, showing something that looked almost like relief. Ethan sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "Harper, please," he whispered. "I can explain everything." "Can you explain the empty investment account?" I pulled out my phone, showing them the balance. "Can you explain why our 19-year-old son is extorting money from us?" "I never meant," Jake began, but stopped when I held up my hand. "I'm going to stay with Lily tonight," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "When I come back tomorrow, I want the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more manipulation." As I turned to leave, Ethan called out, "I love you." I paused at the door, not looking back. Love without trust isn't enough, Ethan. It never was. Lily's guest room felt like a sanctuary and a prison all at once. I lay awake, scrolling through years of photos on my phone, looking for signs I might have missed. There were hundreds of pictures of our happy little family, holidays, birthdays, Jake's music recitals. All of them lies. My phone lit up with another text from Ethan, "Please come home. We need to talk." I switched it off and headed to the kitchen, where Lily was already making coffee, despite it being 5 a.m. "You know what's weird?" I said, accepting a steaming mug. "I keep thinking about Jake's 18th birthday. The one where Ethan bought him that ridiculously expensive guitar?" "Yeah. Ethan said it was from his bonus at work." I traced the rim of my mug. "We had to postpone our trip to Europe because of it." Lily's eyes narrowed. "You think that money came from gambling?" Before I could answer, my work phone buzzed, the emergency line for the clinic. A familiar number flashed on the screen. "Marcus?" I answered, confused. "Don't react," he said quickly. "Jake just left my house. He's been trying to get me to falsify some documents about Ethan's old debts. He's planning something big." My hand started shaking. "What kind of documents?" "Bank statements, loan agreements. He wants to make the gambling debts look worse than they were." "Harper. I think he's trying to force Ethan into selling the house." The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on Lily's kitchen floor. She jumped up, grabbing paper towels, but I barely noticed. "The house is in my name," I said. "Ethan can't sell it without my signature." "Check your email," Marcus replied. "Jake sent me some paperwork he found. There's something you need to see." I opened my laptop with trembling fingers, finding Marcus's email. Attached was a scan of a power of attorney document, with my signature on it. Except I'd never signed it. "That's not my signature," I whispered. "I know," Marcus said. "But it's a good forgery. Jake's been planning this for months." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence while Lily cleaned up the broken mug. My mind raced through possibilities, calling the police, confronting Jake, exposing everything. But something held me back. "I need to go to the clinic," I said suddenly. "Harper, it's not even 6. The patient files," I cut her off. "If Ethan's been gambling again, he might have." I couldn't finish the sentence. Lily grabbed her keys. "I'm driving." The clinic was dark and quiet when we arrived. With shaking hands, I logged into the accounting system. Screen after screen of transactions appeared, regular payments to suppliers, staff salaries, equipment leases. And then I saw it, dozens of small transfers to an unfamiliar account over the past year, each labeled as equipment maintenance. $100 here, $200 there, Lily murmured, looking over my shoulder. Small enough not to raise red flags. "He's been stealing from my patients," I said, my voice hollow. "Using their payment plans to fund his gambling." My phone buzzed again. "Jake, this time, we need to talk. Alone. No dad, no cops. Or everything goes public." Lily read the message and grabbed my arm. "Harper, this is blackmail. You need to call the police." But I was already gathering my things. If this gets out, I'll lose my license. The clinic will be investigated. My patience. So what's your plan? I pulled up Jake's contact and typed, the coffee shop. 1 hour. I'm coming with you, Lily insisted. No. I touched the forehead of a smiling photo of Jake from his graduation. He's still my stepson. And I need to know why. As I drove to the coffee shop, my mind kept circling back to all those family photos. The signs had been there, the mysterious expenses, the secretive phone calls. The tension between father and son that I'd attributed to normal teenage rebellion. I'd been so focused on building the perfect family that I'd missed the cracks in the foundation. Now it was time to face the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. Jake was already waiting at the coffee shop when I arrived, his fingers drumming against a laptop. He looked so young sitting there, barely out of high school, yet somehow he'd orchestrated this whole scheme. I have the forged power of attorney, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. And I know about the clinic's accounts. His fingers stopped drumming. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of uncertainty in his eyes, before his confident mask slipped back into place. Dad's gambling again, he said, opening his laptop. But that's not even the worst part. He turned the screen toward me, showing a series of email exchanges. He's been borrowing money from some dangerous people. They're threatening to come after all of us. So this was never about music? The music was real. His voice cracked slightly. I just needed leverage to force him to stop. The 15,000? That was to pay off the most aggressive collector. I studied his face, looking for any trace of the boy who used to play guitar in our backyard. Why forge my signature? Why steal from the clinic? Because Dad wouldn't stop. Jake's composure finally broke. I tried everything else. Threatening to tell you, hiding his phone, even changing the passwords on his accounts. Nothing worked. A waitress approached our table, but I waved her away. You could have come to me directly. Like you came to me about selling my mom's house? The accusation hit like a physical blow. What? Jake pulled out another document. 2 months ago, Dad took out a loan against Mom's house, the one she left me in her will. He forged my signature, just like I forged yours. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? My hand started shaking. The house had been Jake's inheritance from his mother, who died when he was 12. We'd agreed to keep it as a rental property for Jake's future. Does Marcus know about this? Marcus? Jake laughed bitterly. Marcus is the one who arranged the loan. He's been enabling Dad's gambling for years, taking a cut of every loss. My phone buzzed. Ethan again, where are you? Marcus just called. Whatever Jake's telling you, it's not the whole truth. Show me proof, I told Jake. About the house, about Marcus, all of it. He pulled up document after document, loan agreements, threatening emails, bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts. Each revelation felt like another crack in the foundation of my life. What do you want? I finally asked. I want control of both houses, mine and yours. Put them in a trust that Dad can't touch. Help me get him into rehab, real rehab this time. And? He hesitated. I want you to press charges against Marcus for fraud. And if I don't? Jake's expression hardened. Then everything goes public. The forged signatures, the stolen clinic money, all of it. You'll lose your license, Dad will probably face charges, and those collectors will come after whatever's left. My phone buzzed again, Lily this time. Police just called the clinic. Someone reported financial irregularities. They want to see the books. The room started spinning. Years of building my practice, my reputation, my family, all of it balanced on the edge of a knife. And my 19-year-old stepson held the blade. You're just like him, I said quietly. Jake flinched. I'm nothing like him. I'm trying to save this family. By destroying it? By forcing everyone to face the truth. He closed his laptop. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. After that, I can't control what happens. I stood up, my legs barely supporting me. You already lost control, Jake. The moment you decided to become the thing you hate. As I walked out, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Marcus, meet me at the clinic. There's something about Jake you need to know. The morning sun felt too bright, too harsh. I had less than 24 hours to choose between protecting my stepson and saving my husband, between my profession and my family. Between truth and survival. And somehow, I suspected every choice would be wrong. The clinic's parking lot was empty except for Marcus's sleek black car and a police cruiser. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the officer through the window, talking to Lily at the front desk. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Marcus stood in my office doorway, his perfect composure finally showing cracks. I had to report the irregularities, he said quietly. Jake gave me no choice. Like you had no choice when you helped Ethan gamble away his son's inheritance? He flinched. That's what Jake told you. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me a series of screenshots. Look at the timestamps. The loan against Jake's house? It wasn't Ethan who arranged it. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. They were from Jake to various loan sharks, dating back months before the gambling resumed. He'd been setting this up all along. Jake's been playing both sides, Marcus continued. He arranged the loans himself, forged Ethan's signature, then used the debt to manipulate him back into gambling. The guilt drove Ethan right where Jake wanted him. Why would he? Because of this. Marcus handed me a worn envelope. Inside was a letter from Jake's mother, dated just before her death. It revealed the truth about Jake's inheritance. The house had been mortgaged to pay off his mother's own gambling debts. There was nothing left to inherit. Jake blamed Ethan for keeping this from him, Marcus said. This whole thing? It's not about saving anyone. It's about revenge. The police officer appeared in the doorway. Dr. Winslow? We need to discuss some financial discrepancies. My phone buzzed. Ethan, Jake just showed up at the house. He's threatening to hurt himself. Please come home. The room started spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my family was unraveling. Jake wasn't trying to save his father, he was systematically destroying him. And I'd played right into his hands. I have to go, I told the officer. My stepson. Dr. Winslow, he cut me off firmly. We have evidence of systematic fraud. You're not going anywhere. Marcus stepped forward. Officer, I can explain the discrepancies. I'm the one who. Don't, I whispered. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You're trying to protect them both, aren't you? That's why you came forward about the clinic. He met my eyes. Someone has to stop this cycle. My phone buzzed again, Lily this time. Jake posted everything online. The forged documents, the clinic records, everything. It's already spreading through local news. The officer was saying something about formal statements and potential charges, but his voice seemed distant. Through my office window, I could see news vans pulling into the parking lot. I trusted them, I said to no one in particular. I tried to help them. Sometimes, Marcus replied quietly, the people we try to save are the ones who destroy us. My phone lit up one final time, a text from Jake, I warned you what would happen. Now everyone pays. The officer stepped closer, pulling out his handcuffs. In that moment, I realized the true cost of trying to protect my family. I'd lost my practice, my reputation, possibly my freedom. And for what? To save two men who'd been plotting against each other, and me, all along? Marcus touched my arm gently. There's still a way to fix this. But you'll have to be willing to sacrifice something bigger than yourself. I looked at him, then at the officer, then at my phone with its endless stream of devastating messages. 7 years of marriage, of trying to be the perfect wife and stepmother, of building a life on what I now knew were carefully constructed lies. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll tell you everything. About Jake, about Ethan, about the money. But first, there's something you need to know about what really happened the night Jake's mother died. Marcus went pale. Apparently, there were still some secrets even he didn't know. The police let me make one call before taking me in. I chose Ethan, not because I trusted him anymore, but because I needed him to understand what was coming. Jake's mother didn't die in an accident, I said the moment he answered. And I can prove it. Silence filled the line. Then, barely audible, come home. Now. The officer agreed to escort me, probably hoping I'd lead them to more evidence. When we pulled up to the house, Jake's car was in the driveway, next to Ethan's. My hands trembled as I unlocked the front door. They were both in the living room. Jake sat on the couch, his usual confidence replaced by something raw and desperate. Ethan stood by the window, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Tell them what you told me, Jake said to his father, his voice breaking. About the night Mom died. Ethan's shoulders sagged. I can't. Then I will. I pulled out my phone, opening an email I'd received years ago, but never mentioned. Your mother sent this to my personal account the night she died. I was her dentist, remember? She trusted me. Jake's eyes widened. What? She knew about the gambling, Jake. Not just hers, yours too. You were 16, stealing from her accounts to place bets online. She confronted you that night. Stop, Jake whispered. The accident wasn't an accident. She was driving to the police station to report both of you. You and Ethan were following her car. Ethan turned from the window, his face ashen. Harper, please. The truth, Ethan. For once. My voice was steady now. You both saw her car go off the road. And you both kept driving. The police officer stepped forward, but I held up my hand. That's not even the worst part. Tell him, Ethan. Tell Jake what happened to his inheritance. The house was already mortgaged, Jake said bitterly. Mom's gambling debts. No. I looked directly at Ethan. The house was paid off. Your father mortgaged it the day after she died, to pay off your gambling debts. Both of yours. Jake stood up so quickly, the coffee table overturned. You said it was her debt. You let me blame her all these years. I was protecting you. Ethan shouted back. You were falling apart after she died. I couldn't let you know that your gambling helped drive her to that night. So you let me blame her instead? Let me hate her? Enough. My voice cut through their argument. You've both been playing the same game. Using guilt to manipulate each other, using me to cover your tracks. But guess what? I'm done being your shield. I turned to the officer. I have documentation of everything. The original mortgage papers, the email from Jake's mother, bank records showing both their gambling activities. And yes, proof of the clinic fraud, which they both committed using my passwords. Harper, Ethan stepped toward me, but I backed away. I loved you both, I said quietly. But love without truth is just another form of manipulation. Jake sank back onto the couch, all his schemes finally crumbling. What happens now? Now? I looked between them, my husband and stepson, both trapped in a web of their own making. Now we all face the consequences. Starting with the truth about that night. The officer moved forward, reading them their rights. As he led them out, I noticed Jake's guitar in the corner, covered in dust. All his talk about music, about needing money for producers, just another lie in a house built on deception. My phone buzzed one last time. Lily, Marcus turned himself in. Said he's ready to tell everything. I watched the police cars pull away, carrying the remains of my family with them. The truth hadn't set any of us free, but at least it had stopped the cycle of revenge. Sometimes, I realized, that's the best kind of justice we can hope for. The house keys felt heavy in my hand as I locked up for the last time. Tomorrow, there would be questions, investigations, probably trials. But tonight, in the growing darkness, I finally felt something I hadn't in years: peace. 6 months later, I sat in the visitor's room at the county jail, watching Jake fidget with his sleeve across the table. He looked younger in his prison uniform, more like the teenager who used to play guitar in our backyard. "The therapy's helping," he said quietly. "Both kinds. Gambling addiction and the other stuff." I nodded, placing a manila envelope on the table. "Your mother's full letter. I think you're ready to read it now." His hand shook as he opened it. I'd only shown the police the relevant parts about that night, but the rest, her love for him, her fear for his future, her own struggles with addiction, that belonged to Jake alone. "Marcus visited last week," he said, carefully folding the letter without reading it. "Said you're buying the clinic back. The board reviewed the case. Since I reported the fraud myself and cooperated fully, they're letting me restore my license. With conditions." Jake met my eyes for the first time. "Dad told me about the music therapy program you're starting. For addiction recovery." It seemed right. I smiled slightly. Sometimes the best revenge against our past is helping others avoid the same mistakes. The guard signaled our time was almost up. Jake stood, then hesitated. "Harper?" "That night, when Mom..." I'd been wanting to ask. "Did you know all along?" I suspected. The email gave me leverage when I needed it, but I took a deep breath. We all have secrets we keep thinking we're protecting someone else. He nodded, understanding the weight of what wasn't said. As the guard led him away, I noticed he was humming, something original, not the covers he used to play. Outside, Lily was waiting in her car. "Ready for the hearing?" "As I'll ever be." The courthouse was packed for Ethan's sentencing. He'd taken a plea deal, admitting to everything except his direct role in his first wife's death. Some truths were better left to conscience than courts. Marcus was there too, looking uncomfortable in a suit. After his testimony had helped convict several loan sharks, he'd been granted immunity. The community music program had been his idea, a way to make amends. "The defendant may rise," the judge announced. Ethan stood, shoulders straight. When he turned to face me, I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Not just for the crimes, but for the years of lies that had poisoned everything we'd built. Later, walking through the park where Jake used to practice his music, Lily asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you regret turning them in?" I watched a family playing frisbee, their laughter carrying across the grass. "I regret not doing it sooner." Before revenge became the only language we all understood. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus: "Board approved the music therapy funding. When do we start?" Something lightened in my chest. The clinic would reopen next month, with a new mission and stricter oversight. The therapy program would help people like Jake, like Ethan, like Jake's mother, people trapped in cycles of addiction and deceit. "You know what's weird?" I told Lily. "I kept trying to save my family, but I couldn't see that sometimes saving people means letting them face consequences. And sometimes," she added, "it means saving yourself first." That evening, I found Jake's old guitar in my storage unit. The strings were dusty, but the wood still gleamed. In 2 years, he'd be eligible for parole. Maybe by then, the therapy program would be ready for its first music teacher. I placed the guitar in my car, next to a stack of patient files and program proposals. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: rebuilding my practice, establishing the therapy program, learning to trust again. But for now, I sat in the quiet car and played the few chords Jake had taught me, letting the simple melody wash away the last echoes of revenge. My phone lit up one final time, an email from Jake's mother's old account, scheduled years ago. "Thank you for being the truth teller I couldn't be." Sometimes, I realized, the greatest act of love isn't protection or revenge. It's simply being brave enough to face the truth, no matter the cost.
The credit card statement stared back at me from my laptop screen. its total making my stomach lurch. $23,000. I blinked hard, hoping the number would change, but it remained stubbornly fixed. These weren't my charges. I hadn't spent a dime at the Golden Palace Casino, let alone multiple transactions totaling thousands. My name is Freya, and I've always been the responsible one, the one my family calls when they need money, advice, or someone to clean up their messes. But this was different. My phone buzzed. Mom's face lit up the screen, probably calling about the usual, Terence needs help with rent, or Dad's business is having another cash flow problem. I let it ring. Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost, Natasha said, peering over my cubicle wall. Her dark curls fell forward as she leaned in closer to look at my screen. Holy shit, Freya, that's not right. Tell me about it. I scrolled through the transactions, each one making me feel sicker than the last. I need to call the bank. Do that now, Natasha insisted, pulling up a chair. I'll cover for you with Roberts if he comes looking. The hold music played for 20 excruciating minutes before a customer service representative picked up. Hi, I'm calling about some fraudulent charges on my card. As I explained the situation, the representative's voice grew concerned. Ms. Murray, these charges were actually authorized with your PIN. Do you share your card with anyone? No, absolutely not. But even as I said it, a memory surfaced. Mom asking to borrow my card last month for emergency groceries. There's something else, the representative continued. There appears to be a credit line increase request submitted last week under your name. My hands started shaking. I never requested that. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A text from Terence. Hey sis, can you spot me $500? Just until payday. Promise I'll pay you back this time. I stared at the message, my vision blurring with tears of anger. This was the same brother who still owed me $3,000 from his last emergency. The brother Mom and Dad always said needed extra support because he was sensitive. Freya. Natasha's voice was gentle. What do you want to do? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. Dad this time. I answered, my voice tight. Hey, Dad. Princess, your mother's been trying to reach you. We need to discuss something important. Would that something be the $23,000 charged to my credit card at a casino? The silence on the other end was deafening. Freya, honey, we can explain. Your brother's been going through a rough patch. Stop. My voice came out stronger than I expected. I'm calling the police. No. Dad's voice cracked. Please, we'll figure this out as a family. You know how fragile Terence is. This would destroy him. Natasha was watching me intently, her expression a mix of concern and encouragement. She mouthed the words, "Stay strong." Dad, what about me? Did anyone think about how this would affect me? Of course we did, Princess, but you're the strong one. You always land on your feet. Terence, he needs protection. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protection? From what? Consequences? Just come over for dinner tonight. Your mother's making your favorite lasagna. We can talk about this like adults. I glanced at the credit card statement again, then at Terence's text, still waiting for a response. My whole life flashed before me. All the times I'd said yes, all the times I'd helped, all the times I'd put my own dreams on hold to be the responsible one. No, Dad, not this time. Freya. I have to go. I have a fraud claim to file. I hung up before he could respond. Natasha squeezed my shoulder. That was badass. I think I'm going to throw up. No, you're not. You're going to file that fraud claim, and then we're going to figure out exactly what they've done. She pulled out her notebook. And then you're going to stop being everyone's ATM. My phone buzzed again. Mom, this time, with a text. Please don't do anything rash, sweetheart. Family protects family. I turned my phone off and looked at Natasha. You're right. But first, I need to check something else. If they used my credit card, what's stopping them from taking out other loans in my name? The look on Natasha's face told me she'd had the same thought. As I opened a new tab to check my credit report, I could feel my hands steadying, my shock giving way to determination. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to protect my family. I was going to protect myself. Personal loan, $45,000, approved March 15th. I read the credit report entry out loud, my voice shaking. Car loan, $32,000, approved January 3rd. Each line felt like another punch to the gut. I never applied for any of these. Natasha and I had moved our investigation to her apartment after work. Empty takeout containers littered her coffee table as we dug deeper into the financial mess my family had created. How did they even get approved for these? Natasha asked, scrolling through the documents on her laptop. They had everything they needed. My social security number, birth certificate, all my personal information. I rubbed my temples. They're my parents. I trusted them with everything. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed with another message from Terence. Come on, sis. Don't be like that. Just answer Mom and Dad's calls. Look at this, Natasha said, turning her laptop toward me. She'd pulled up my bank statements from the past year. These regular transfers to this account. Is that Terence's? I leaned in closer. Yeah, that's his. Mom said he needed help with rent. My voice trailed off as I did the math. $5,000 a month? That's more than his entire rent should be. A knock at the door made us both jump. Natasha checked the peephole and then opened it, revealing Dean from work, carrying a stock of papers. I hope you don't mind, Natasha said. I called him. He used to work in financial crimes at his old bank. Dean set the papers down. I did some digging. Freya, this is bigger than just credit card fraud. These loans, they're using sophisticated identity theft techniques. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. My dad, I said quietly. He works in finance. He'd know how to do this. Dean sat down across from me. There's something else. I found multiple accounts at Golden Palace Casino under variations of your name. They've been active for months. My phone rang again. Mom. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Freya, please come home. We need to talk about this as a family. Like how you talked to me before taking out loans in my name. Your brother needed help. He was in trouble with some very dangerous people. We had no choice. I caught Dean's eye as he mouthed, "Record this." Natasha was already hitting record on her phone. So you decided to steal my identity? My voice was steady now, fueled by anger. Don't be so dramatic. We're your parents. Everything we have is yours anyway. We just needed to help Terence get back on his feet. By destroying my credit. By stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars in my name. Keep your voice down, Mom hissed. Your brother might hear you. He's very fragile right now. Dean was frantically writing something on a notepad. Ask about the casino accounts. Mom, what about the casino accounts in my name? There was a long pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Golden Palace Casino. Multiple accounts. Ring any bells? That's... That's nothing for you to worry about. Your father has it under control. Natasha made a disgusted noise. Dean kept writing. Get her to admit to the loans. So you and Dad did take out those loans using my information? Of course we did. And you should be grateful. Do you know what would have happened to Terence if we hadn't? Those gambling debts would have gotten him killed. I felt the blood drain from my face. Dean and Natasha exchanged looks. Mom, you just admitted to committing identity theft. That's a federal crime. Don't you dare threaten me. I am your mother. Not anymore. I hung up. The silence in the room was heavy. Dean broke it first. Freya, you have enough evidence here for a solid case, that recording alone. I found something else, Natasha interrupted, holding up a stack of mail she'd retrieved from her bag. These fell out of your desk when you were moving stuff earlier. They're bank statements addressed to your apartment, but they're not yours. I grabbed the envelopes. They were indeed addressed to my apartment, but to T. Murray, Terence. Inside were statement after statement, showing massive casino withdrawals and overdraft fees. He's been using my address, I whispered. They've all been lying to me for months. Years, probably. Dean touched my arm gently. You need to decide what you want to do. But whatever you decide, you need to protect yourself first. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. The loans, the credit card statements, the casino accounts, the recorded confession, and now these bank statements. Years of being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always cleaned up everyone else's messes, and this was how they repaid me. I want to burn it all down, I said, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. I want them to face every single consequence of what they've done. Natasha squeezed my hand. Then, let's make that happen. The bank manager's office felt too small, too warm. I sat across from her desk, watching as she reviewed the stack of documents I'd brought. Ms. Murray, she said, looking up from the papers, this is extensive. And you're saying none of these loans or accounts were authorized by you? No. My parents and brother used my information without my knowledge. She nodded, making notes. We'll need to file formal fraud reports for each account. But first, she pulled out a fresh document. There's something you should see. Another loan application was submitted in your name yesterday. My hands clenched into fists. They're still doing it? The application hasn't been processed yet. We flagged it due to the sudden high volume of credit requests. As we discussed the next steps, my phone vibrated. A text from Dean. Terence just walked into Golden Palace. Want me to follow? I hadn't expected Dean to actually stake out the casino, but I texted back immediately. Yes. Please. The bank manager was still talking. And we'll need you to sign these forms to begin the investigation. 20 minutes later, I walked out with a thick folder of documentation. Dean was waiting in his car across the street. You won't believe what I saw, he said as I got in. Your brother's in there right now, throwing around hundreds like they're nothing. He's at the high-stakes poker table. Take me there. The casino was gaudy, all flashing lights and electronic chimes. Dean led me to an observation area above the poker tables. There was Terence, surrounded by chips, laughing with a cocktail in his hand. Would you like a drink, sir? A waitress appeared beside us. No, thank you. Dean started. Yes, I interrupted. I'll have whatever he's having. I pointed at Terence. Minutes later, I walked down to the poker table, drink in hand. Terence didn't notice me at first, too focused on his cards. Hitting it big, little brother? He looked up, his smile faltering for just a second before returning, broader and faker than before. Freya, come to join the fun? Where'd you get the money, Terence? He laughed, loud and hollow. What are you, Mom? I'm working now, remember? Really? Because last I heard, you needed to borrow $500 for rent. The other players were starting to look uncomfortable. Terence's smile became fixed. Let's talk about this later, sis. Let's talk about it now. Let's talk about the loans in my name, the credit cards, the casino accounts. Terence's face darkened. You're making a scene. You're making a felony. He stood up abruptly, grabbing my arm and pulling me away from the table. Dean started forward, but I waved him back. What the hell is wrong with you? Terence hissed once we were in a quiet corner. Me? You stole my identity. I didn't steal anything. Mom and Dad handled all that. They're just trying to help me get back on my feet. With my money? My credit? He smirked, and in that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. Come on, Freya. We both know you're the responsible one, the successful one. You can handle this. I'm the one who needs help. You need help, all right. Professional help. Don't act all high and mighty. You've always loved playing the martyr, haven't you? Perfect Freya, always sacrificing for the family. My phone buzzed. A text from Natasha. Got the footage from the bank security cameras. Clear shots of your dad submitting the loan applications. Terence glanced at my phone. What are you going to do? Turn us in? They're your parents, Freya. They'll never forgive you. Maybe I'll never forgive them. He laughed again, but there was an edge to it now. You know what's funny? Mom and Dad are so worried about you finding out, but I told them not to stress. I said, Freya will cave. She always does. She'll cry and yell, but in the end, she'll help us fix it. She always does. I took a slow sip of my drink, letting his words sink in. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed. Who are you calling? The police. His smirk vanished. You're bluffing. Hello? Yes, I'd like to report multiple instances of identity theft and fraud. I'm at Golden Palace Casino, and one of the perpetrators is here right now, gambling with stolen money. Terence lunged for my phone, but Dean was suddenly there, stepping between us. Don't, Dean said quietly. You've done enough. Terence looked from Dean to me, his face contorting with rage. You stupid bitch! You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I said, watching as 2 security guards approached, responding to Dean's signal. For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I'm doing. The guards reached us just as Terence tried to run. As they detained him, I could hear him shouting, Call Mom! Call Dad! Freya's lost her mind. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was already walking away, sending a group text to my parents. Terence is about to be arrested. Your turn is coming. I have everything documented. Dean fell into step beside me. You okay? No, I said, but I will be. The police station's fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and unreal. I sat in a hard plastic chair, watching through a window as Terence was processed. Mom and Dad hadn't arrived yet, but their frantic texts kept lighting up my phone. You need to eat something, Dean said, offering me a sandwich from the vending machine. I can't. Detective Rivera sat down across from us, spreading out photos of the bank surveillance footage. Your father is clearly visible in these images, submitting documents in your name. Combined with the recorded phone conversation with your mother, we have a solid case. My phone rang again. Dad. You should answer it, the detective said, nodding to her colleague to record the call. I put it on speaker. Hello? Freya. What have you done? Dad's voice was trembling. They're holding your brother like a common criminal. He is a criminal. So are you and Mom. We are your family. Everything we did was to protect... To protect Terence, I know, but who was protecting me? You're being selfish. Your brother could face jail time. Detective Rivera slid a notepad across the table. Ask about the latest loan application. Dad, why did you submit another loan application in my name yesterday? A pause. Who told you about that? The bank flagged it. Were you planning to steal even more money from me? It's not stealing when it's family. Terence needed... How much does he owe? I interrupted. The real amount, Dad. No more lies. Another pause, longer this time. Close to $500,000. Dean swore under his breath. Detective Rivera leaned forward. To who? I asked. Some people. Bad people. They were threatening him. So you decided to sacrifice my future instead? We had a plan! Once Terence won big at the casino, we'd pay everything back. You'd never even know. Never know that my own parents committed felony fraud? That you destroyed my credit? That you... A commotion in the hallway cut me off. Mom burst in, her face red and tear-streaked. How dare you! She screamed, lunging toward me. An officer stepped between us. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done to me, I corrected, standing up. Where were you when I needed help with college? When I was working 3 jobs to pay my rent? You were too busy bailing out Terence. He's sensitive. He needs us. And I don't. You're strong. You can handle it. Not anymore. I turned to Detective Rivera. I want to press charges against all of them. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Dad's voice came through the phone, still on speaker. Princess, please, we can work this out. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, Dean said quietly. Detective Rivera nodded to an officer. Mr. Murray, we need you to come down to the station immediately. I need to call our lawyer. That would be wise, the detective said. Mrs. Murray, please remain here. Mom looked up at me, her makeup streaked across her face. You're really doing this? To your own parents? You did this. All of you. Every time you chose Terence over me. Every time you stole from me. Every time you lied. We'll never forgive you for this, she spat. I know. My voice was steady. I'm counting on it. The detective led Mom to another room for questioning. Through the window, I could see Terence in his cell, head in his hands. Dean touched my shoulder. Want to get some air? Outside, the night air was cool on my face. My phone buzzed with a text from Natasha. Just saw the news. You okay? Need me to come down? No, I texted back. But maybe later. Wine and ice cream? Already bought both. You're staying with me tonight. No arguments. Dean leaned against the wall beside me. You know what happens next, right? This goes public. Court dates. Family drama splashed across local news. I know. Your parents could go to jail. I know that too. He studied my face. You're not backing down, are you? They made their choice. Every time they forged my signature. Every time they took out another loan. Every time they chose Terence. I looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city lights. Now I'm making mine. Detective Rivera wants your statement. An officer called from the door. I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. Inside, I could hear Mom still crying, Dad's arrival creating another wave of drama, Terrence's demands to speak to a lawyer. The family I'd spent my whole life protecting was falling apart, but for the first time, I wasn't rushing to pick up the pieces. "Ready?" Dean asked. I nodded, turning back toward the station. Ready to tell the truth. All of it. The courthouse hallway buzzed with tension. 3 weeks had passed since that night at the police station, and now we were all here for the preliminary hearing. My parents sat on one bench, Terrence on another with his court-appointed lawyer. None of them would look at me. "Remember," my lawyer whispered, "let me do most of the talking. Only answer what's asked." Natasha squeezed my hand. Dean stood nearby, his presence steady and reassuring. A bailiff opened the courtroom doors. "All rise!" Inside, everything happened quickly. The charges were read: identity theft, fraud, financial exploitation. My parents' lawyer tried to paint it as a family matter that got out of hand. Terrence's lawyer argued addiction as a mitigating factor. Then it was my turn to testify. "Ms. Murray," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about when you first discovered the fraud." I described finding the credit card charges, the loans, the casino accounts. My voice stayed steady until I reached the part about my mother's phone call. "And what did your mother say when you confronted her?" "She said I should be grateful, that I was the strong one, so I could handle it, that Terrence needed protection more than I did." Mom made a choked sound from her seat. Dad stared at his hands. "And the total amount of fraudulent charges and loans?" $487,235. The judge's eyebrows rose. Terrence shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor," my parents' lawyer interrupted, "this is clearly a family matter that got out of hand. The Murray family has always been close-knit." Close-knit? I couldn't help myself. "They stole $500,000 from me." "Ms. Murray," the judge warned, "please only speak when questioned." "Sorry, Your Honor." Terrence's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client has struggled with gambling addiction. He never intended—" "That's bull!" I burst out again. "He was bragging about it at the casino. He said I would cave, that I always cave." "Ms. Murray!" The judge's voice was sharp. "One more outburst and you'll be held in contempt." My lawyer touched my arm, calming me. The prosecutor continued, presenting the bank footage, phone recordings, and documentation. With each piece of evidence, my family seemed to shrink further into themselves. During a brief recess, Terrence approached me in the hallway. Dean immediately stepped closer. "Freya," Terrence said, his voice low, "you can still stop this. We're blood. Blood doesn't steal from blood. Those people I owe money to, they're dangerous. If I go to jail—" "You should have thought about that before you gambled away $500,000 of my money." His face darkened. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Saint Freya, always doing the right thing. You're loving this, aren't you? Finally getting to punish us all?" Loving this. I stepped closer, my voice shaking. "I'm watching my family get charged with felonies. Mom might go to jail. Dad might lose his license. And you still think you're the victim here." "I am the victim. I'm sick. I need help, not punishment. Then you should have asked for help. Real help, not stolen my identity and destroyed my life." "Everything okay here?" A bailiff approached, eyeing Terrence. "Fine," he muttered, backing away. "Just fine." Back in the courtroom, the judge reviewed all the evidence before speaking. The evidence of systematic fraud is overwhelming. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a family emergency. This was a calculated, long-term scheme to exploit Ms. Murray's credit and identity. She turned to my parents. As her parents, you were supposed to protect her, not exploit her. Mom started crying again. Dad put his arm around her. Given the severity and duration of these crimes, I'm setting bail at $100,000 each. Mr. Terence Murray will remain in custody due to flight risk. Trial dates will be set for next month. The gavel struck. My parents' lawyer immediately began discussing payment plans. Terence was led away in handcuffs, shooting me a look of pure hatred. In the hallway, Mom approached me one last time. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice bitter. "You've destroyed this family." "No, Mom, you did that. Every time you chose him over me. Every time you stole from me. Every time you said I could handle it because I was strong. He's your brother. And I'm your daughter. Or I was." Dad tried to speak, but I turned away, walking toward Dean and Natasha. Behind me, I could hear Mom's sobs echoing through the courthouse halls. "You did the right thing," Natasha said, hugging me. "Then why does it feel so awful?" Dean took my hand. "Because you're a good person. Because despite everything they did, you still love them." "Yeah," I said, watching as my parents were led away to process bail. "I do, and that's the worst part of all of this." We walked out into the sunlight, leaving behind the family I'd lost by finally finding the strength to stand up for myself. "You've got another letter," Natasha said, holding up an envelope with the jail's return address. "Want me to add it to the pile?" I nodded from my spot on her couch, where I'd been living for the past 2 weeks. The pile of unopened letters from Terence had grown to 12. Mom and Dad, out on bail, had switched from crying voicemails to angry texts to guilt-ridden emails. My phone buzzed. Dean. "Turn on Channel 7 now." Natasha grabbed the remote. The local news was running a story about our case, in what prosecutors are calling one of the largest family fraud cases in the state. The victim's own parents allegedly... "Victim," I muttered. I hate that word. The story cut to footage of my parents leaving the courthouse, then to an old family photo someone had dug up. We were all smiling at some long-ago birthday party. Terence was blowing out candles. I was standing in the background, always in the background. A knock at the door made us jump. Dean stood there with takeout bags. "Thought you might need dinner after seeing that," he said. "They made me look like some sort of tragic figure," I said, taking a container of pad thai. "Poor Freya, betrayed by her family." "You were betrayed," Natasha pointed out. "I know, but..." My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Hello, is this Freya?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "I'm calling about your brother's debt." My blood ran cold. Dean noticed my expression and moved closer. "Who is this?" "Let's just say I'm one of the people your brother owes money to. A lot of money." "That's not my problem." "It is now. See, your brother promised he'd pay us back with his casino winnings, but now he's in jail, thanks to you. You should talk to his lawyer." The man laughed. "We don't do lawyers. We do family, and your family." "Are you threatening me?" Dean grabbed my phone, putting it on speaker. Natasha was already dialing the police. "Not threatening, just explaining the situation. Your brother owes us $200,000. We're willing to be reasonable. Pay us, and this all goes away." "And if I don't?" "Then maybe those charges against your parents get worse. Maybe some new evidence appears. Maybe I report this call to the FBI. Dean cut in. Since you're adding extortion to illegal gambling. A pause. Who's this? Someone who's recording this call and tracing this number. The line went dead. Call Detective Rivera, Dean said to Natasha. Now! My hands were shaking. They found me. They actually found me. They're trying to scare you, Dean said, pulling me close. We won't let them. Detective Rivera arrived 30 minutes later with 2 other officers. We'll need to set up surveillance, she said, pacing Natasha's living room. And you'll need protection. I can't stay here, I said to Natasha. I'm putting you in danger. Don't even think about it, Natasha replied. We're in this together. She's right, Dean added. You're not alone anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. These men came to our house. What have you done? Why can't you just help your brother? Detective Rivera read the text over my shoulder. We'll need to question your parents about their contact with these individuals. They'll never cooperate, I said. They'll protect Terrence until the end. Then they'll face additional charges. Another text came through, this time from Dad. Princess, please. These men are serious. Just pay them. We'll figure out the rest later. Still protecting him, I whispered. Even now. Dean took my hand. You don't have to answer them. Actually, Detective Rivera said, we might want her to, if we can get them to admit more about these men. My phone rang again, another unknown number. Detective Rivera nodded to her colleague to trace it. Hello, Freya? It was Terrence, calling from jail. You have to help me. These guys, they're not playing around. Neither am I. They'll hurt Mom and Dad. Don't you care? Of course I care, but I'm done fixing your messes. They know where you live, where you work, who your friends are. Detective Rivera was frantically writing notes, coordinating with someone on her radio. Is that a threat, Terrence? It's a warning. Family looks out for family. Family doesn't destroy family. You're destroying me! No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. You did that all on your own. I hung up, looking at the room full of people who had my back. Really had my back. Not like my family had claimed to all these years. Okay, I said to Detective Rivera. What's our next move? For the first time in my life, I wasn't facing a crisis alone, and that made all the difference. The trial date arrived faster than I expected. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, their cameras flashing as we approached. Dean kept his arm around me, shielding me from their questions. Ms. Murray, how does it feel to testify against your own family? Did you know about your brother's gambling addiction? Are your parents going to prison? Inside, my parents sat with their lawyer, both looking older than I remembered. Mom had lost weight. Dad's hair had gone completely grey. They didn't look like criminals. They looked broken. Terrence was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs clinking. The past month in jail hadn't been kind to him. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt. All rise. The proceedings began with opening statements. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically: bank records, forged documents, recorded conversations. My parents' lawyer spoke about family loyalty and misguided love. Terrence's lawyer emphasized addiction and mental health. Then they called me to testify. Ms. Murray, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about your relationship with your family before discovering the fraud. We were close, or I thought we were. I was always the one they counted on, the responsible one. And how did they repay that trust? Objection, my parents' lawyer called out, leading the witness. Sustained. The prosecutor rephrased. What happened when you discovered the unauthorized loans? I described everything. The credit card charges, the loans, the confrontations. As I spoke, I couldn't look at my family. I kept my eyes on Dean and Natasha in the gallery. And the threatening calls? The prosecutor asked. They started after Terence was arrested. Men he owed money to, demanding I pay his debts. Did your family support you during these threats? No. They told me to pay the men. To protect Terence. Again. During cross-examination, my parents' lawyer tried a different approach. Isn't it true your parents only wanted to help their son? By destroying my life? By protecting their child from dangerous criminals? I'm their child too, the lawyer paused. And haven't they always provided for you? Supported you? No. They supported Terence. I supported myself, and then they stole from me to support him more. Terence's lawyer was next. Ms. Murray, are you aware of the nature of gambling addiction? Yes. I researched treatment programs for years, tried to get him help. He refused. So you knew he was sick? Being sick doesn't give you the right to steal $500,000. A commotion erupted in the gallery. One of the men who'd threatened me had stood up. You think this is over? He shouted. You think testifying fixes anything? Security rushed toward him. More men stood up. 4, 5, 6 of them. Your brother still owes us, another yelled. The judge banged her gavel. Order! Clear the courtroom! Dean vaulted over the barrier, reaching me before the guards did. Natasha was right behind him. They formed a human shield as chaos erupted. My mother's voice cut through the noise. Just pay them, Freya! Please! I turned to see her being led away by guards, still reaching toward me. Dad wouldn't look at me at all. Terence was laughing, actually laughing, as they rushed him out. You see? He called out. You can't escape family, sis. Detective Rivera appeared with more officers, surrounding us as they cleared the courtroom. In the hallway, she turned to me. We got them. All of them. Recording devices caught everything. We've been tracking these guys for months. What? Your case helped us build a bigger one against an organized crime ring. Those men. They're going down too. I sagged against Dean, the adrenaline wearing off. The judge called us back in an hour later, the courtroom now heavily guarded. In light of today's events, she announced, and the overwhelming evidence presented, I'm prepared to rule. My parents stood with their lawyer. Terence was brought back in, no longer laughing. The defendants have not only committed serious financial crimes, but have continued to demonstrate a complete lack of remorse or understanding of their actions. Furthermore, their connection to known criminal elements presents a clear danger. She turned to my parents. 5 years each, with possibility of parole after 3, plus full restitution. Mom collapsed into Dad's arms. As for Terence Murray, given your prior record and the severity of these crimes, 10 years, no possibility of parole for 7. You can't do this, Terence shouted. Freya, tell them you forgive us. But I didn't. I couldn't. As they were led away, I stayed silent, holding on to Dean and Natasha's hands. Outside, reporters swarmed again, but Detective Rivera's team cleared a path. It's over, Dean said softly, but looking at my family being led to separate police vehicles, I knew it wasn't over. It was just different now. Permanently, irreversibly different. And somehow, I was okay with that. The last box from my parents' house sat unopened on my new apartment floor. Dean and Natasha lounged on the couch we'd just hauled up 3 flights of stairs, watching me stare at it. "You don't have to open it today," Natasha said. "Yes, I do." I cut through the tape. Inside were photo albums, childhood memorabilia, and a stack of letters tied with ribbon, every birthday card I'd ever received from my parents. The doorbell rang. Detective Rivera stood there with a thick envelope. "The restitution papers came through," she said, stepping inside. "The courts seized your parents' assets and Terrence's accounts. It won't cover everything, but it's a start." I nodded, still staring at the birthday cards. "There's something else." She pulled out another document. "The gambling ring we took down. There's a victims' compensation fund. You qualify for it." "I don't want their money." "Take it," she insisted. "Use it to rebuild. That's the best revenge. Living well." My phone buzzed with a text from the prison chaplain. "Your mother asked to see you again. Should I tell her the same thing?" "Still no," I typed back. Dean moved to sit beside me, picking up one of the photo albums. "Look at this one," he said, pointing to a picture of teenage me at a science fair. "First place ribbon. Were your parents there?" "No, they were at Terrence's baseball game." "Their loss," Natasha said, joining us. "Because that girl grew up to be pretty amazing." Detective Rivera cleared her throat. "The DA wanted me to tell you. Your testimony didn't just help your case. 3 other families have come forward about similar fraud schemes. You started something important." "I didn't want to start anything. I just wanted to be valued," Dean finished. "To be protected instead of being the protector." "Yeah." I picked up a birthday card from when I turned 16. Inside, Mom had written, "You're so strong, sweetheart. We're so lucky to have you." "They were right about one thing," I said, ripping the card in half. "I'm strong." Natasha grabbed a trash bag. "Keep or toss?" I looked at the pile of memories. "Toss. All of it." As we filled the bag, my phone rang. An unknown number. My heart jumped, but Detective Rivera checked it. "It's clear," she said. "Not from the prison or any known associates." It was the bank. "Ms. Murray, your credit restoration claim has been approved. All fraudulent accounts have been removed from your record." After I hung up, Dean pulled me close. "That's worth celebrating." "Actually," I said, "I have a better idea." An hour later, we stood in front of Golden Palace Casino. The same doorman who had watched Terrence gamble away stolen money nodded to us. "You sure about this?" Natasha asked. I walked straight to the high-stakes poker table where I'd confronted Terrence. The dealer recognized me from the news. "What's your game?" he asked. "Not gambling," I said, pulling out my phone. I dialed the prison chaplain's number. "Hello?" "Tell my mother I'll see her. And tell her this, I'm at the casino right now, at Terrence's favorite table. But I'm not playing. I'm walking away. That's what strength really looks like." I hung up and turned to my friends. My real family now. "Let's go home." Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. Detective Rivera's phone buzzed. "They got the last one," she said. "The final member of the gambling ring. It's really over now." "No," I said, watching the casino lights flicker behind us. "It's just beginning." Dean took my hand as we walked away. Natasha linked her arm through mine on the other side. "You know what the best part is?" I said. "For the first time in my life, I don't feel responsible for anyone else's happiness, just my own." "Speaking of happiness," Dean said, pulling me closer. How about dinner? I know this great little place. As long as it's not the restaurant your parents own, Natasha teased. God, no. He laughed. I learned from Freya. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born with. I stopped walking, looking at these people who had stood by me through everything. Dean with his unwavering support, Natasha with her fierce loyalty, even Detective Rivera with her dedication to justice. Thank you, I said, all of you, for helping me find my strength. You always had it, Natasha said. You just needed to use it for yourself instead of everyone else. We walked on into the evening, leaving behind the casino, the memories, and the weight of family obligations I'd carried for so long. Ahead lay something better, freedom, truth, and the kind of love that builds you up instead of tearing you down. I was finally, completely free.
The call came on a Tuesday, right as I was finishing another failed attempt at a self-portrait. My hands were covered in charcoal, and dark smudges decorated my workspace like accusations of mediocrity. Brian's voice echoed in my head. Why do you even bother, Layla? You'll never be good enough. I'm Layla, and for 30 years, I've lived in the shadow of my perfect older brother. The phone kept ringing, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Another habit born from years of expecting disappointment. But something made me answer. Ms. Wheeler, this is James Morton from Morton & Associates law firm. I'm calling regarding your Uncle Robert's estate. My Uncle Robert? I hadn't seen him in years, though he'd always been the only one who believed in my art. The last time we spoke, he'd bought one of my paintings for what I later learned was 10 times its asking price. I'm afraid I don't understand, I said, wiping charcoal on my jeans. Uncle Robert passed away 3 months ago. Yes, and after extensive review, his will has finally cleared probate. Ms. Wheeler, you've been named the sole heir to Armstrong Arts International. The charcoal pencil slipped from my fingers. That's impossible. Uncle Robert owned one of the largest art dealership networks in the country. Indeed, the company currently manages 16 galleries across 3 continents, with numerous subsidiary businesses. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning to discuss the details? I sat down hard in my paint-splattered chair. Yes, I suppose I would. The next morning, I walked into Morton & Associates wearing the only business suit I owned, a black ensemble I'd bought for Uncle Robert's funeral. The receptionist directed me to a conference room where I met James Morton and another man who introduced himself as Emerson Armstrong, the company's chief advisor. Your uncle spoke often about you, Emerson said, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. He believed in your vision for art as something that should be accessible to everyone, not just the elite. James cleared his throat and began laying out documents. There are several matters we need to discuss, but first... A knock interrupted him. His secretary entered with a stack of folders, and as she set them down, a familiar name caught my eye on one of the papers. Wait, I said, reaching for the document. Is that Brian Wheeler? Emerson and James exchanged glances. Yes, Emerson confirmed. Your brother has been employed at one of our subsidiary companies for the past 18 months. My stomach churned. Brian, who'd spent years mocking my artistic aspirations, worked for an art company? The same company I now owned? Does he know about this? About the inheritance? Not yet, James replied. The reading of the will was private, as per your uncle's instructions. I thought about Sunday dinner just 2 days ago, where Brian had dominated the conversation with stories about his corporate successes. When are you going to grow up and get a real job, Layla? He'd asked, smirking over his wine glass. You can't play with crayons forever. Ms. Wheeler? Emerson's voice pulled me back. There's something else you should know. We've noticed some concerning patterns in the financial reports from your brother's division. My throat tightened. What kind of patterns? Irregularities, he said carefully. Nothing concrete yet, but... Show me everything, I interrupted, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. For the next 2 hours, they walked me through the basics of the company structure, my new responsibilities, and the preliminary findings regarding the financial discrepancies. By the time I left the office, my head was spinning with information, but one thought remained crystal clear. Brian had no idea his little sister now held his career in her hands. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Zara. "Drinks, you sound weird." I met her at our usual spot, a quiet bar with abstract art on the walls. After I told her everything, she leaned back with a low whistle. "Holy shit, Lay. What are you gonna do?" I traced the condensation on my glass, thinking about years of snide comments and undermining remarks. About being the family disappointment. About Brian's smug face every time he achieved something I couldn't. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but for the first time in my life, I have real power. And I took a deep breath. I think it's time to use it." Zara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. But Lay, don't let him make you small anymore." My phone buzzed again, a message from Emerson with a preliminary audit report attached. The first line made my blood run cold. Unauthorized transfers totaling $2.1 million. I looked up at Zara, my heart pounding. "I think my brother's been stealing from the company. My company." The weight of those words settled over me like a heavy cloak. For years, I'd tried to earn my family's approval through my art. Now, with a twist of fate I never saw coming, I had the power to expose the golden child for what he really was. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? The Armstrong Arts International headquarters felt like entering another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views, and original artwork adorned every wall. My footsteps echoed across marble floors as I followed Emerson to his office. "Coffee?" he offered, gesturing to a sleek machine. "Please, I haven't slept much since yesterday." He handed me a steaming cup and pulled up financial records on his dual monitors. "These are the transactions we flagged. Notice anything unusual?" I leaned forward, scanning the numbers. Despite my limited business experience, even I could spot the pattern. Regular transfers always just under the reporting threshold, flowing through a maze of subsidiary accounts. "Who authorized these?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your brother has signing authority up to $250,000. Each individual transfer stays under that limit, but collectively..." Emerson's voice trailed off. My phone buzzed, a text from Brian. "Heard you were at AAI? What's little sis doing in the big leagues?" I ignored it, focusing on the screen. "Show me everything from the past year." Hours passed as Emerson and his team walked me through the company's structure. By lunch, my head throbbed with information overload. But one thing was clear. Brian had been systematically siphoning money through a complex web of transactions. A knock at the door interrupted our discussion. "Ms. Wheeler?" A young woman entered, carrying a tablet. "I'm Zara Steele, your new assistant. Mr. Armstrong hired me this morning." I smiled, recognizing my best friend in her professional disguise. We'd discussed this plan last night, having someone I could trust on the inside. "Perfect timing," Emerson said. "We were just about to visit the subsidiary office where Brian works." My stomach clenched. "Today?" "No time like the present. Don't worry, it's just a routine new owner tour. Brian won't suspect anything." The drive to the subsidiary office gave me time to compose myself. Zara squeezed my hand reassuringly as we pulled into the parking lot. "Remember," she whispered, "you're the boss now." The office lobby buzzed with activity. Employees straightened their postures as we walked past, word of the new owner's visit spreading like wildfire. Then I heard his voice. Well, if it isn't my baby sister." Brian strode toward us, all confidence and expensive suit. He hugged me too tight, his cologne overwhelming. "What brings you to our humble workplace?" "Just touring my new company," I said, watching his face carefully. He laughed, but something flickered in his eyes. "Your company? That's cute." "Ms. Wheeler is indeed the new owner of Armstrong Arts International," Emerson stated firmly, "including all subsidiaries." Brian's smile froze. "Is that so? Uncle Robert always did have an interesting sense of humor." "We'd love a tour of the financial department," I said, matching his fake smile, "since you're so familiar with the operations here." His laugh turned sharp. "Sorry, sis, but I have meetings all afternoon. Perhaps another time?" "Cancel them," I said quietly. "This takes priority." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken tensions. Finally, Brian's facade cracked slightly. "Of course. Right this way." As we followed him through the office, I noticed how he skipped certain areas, steering us away from specific departments. Zara took careful notes on her tablet, while Emerson asked pointed questions about financial protocols. And these international wire transfers, Emerson pressed, they all go through proper channels? Absolutely, Brian replied smoothly. Everything by the book. My phone vibrated. A message from Zara. Security just caught someone shredding documents in the accounting department. Brian, I interrupted his rehearsed speech about compliance procedures. Why don't we check out the accounting department next? He stepped in front of me. It's rather boring, really. Nothing you'd understand. Try me. Listen, Layla. He lowered his voice, gripping my arm. You might own this company on paper, but you don't know the first thing about running it. Why don't you stick to your little paintings and let the professionals handle business? I pulled my arm free. Remove your hand, or I'll have security do it for you. The mask slipped completely then, revealing the contempt I'd always known was there. You're making a mistake, he hissed. No, Brian. I think I'm finally fixing one. I turned to Emerson. Please have it freeze all accounts Mr. Wheeler has access to, effective immediately, and send a team to secure the accounting department. Brian's face went pale. You can't do that. Actually, I smiled, I can, and I just did. As security arrived to escort us to accounting, I caught a glimpse of Brian pulling out his phone, fingers flying over the keys. Whatever evidence he was trying to destroy, whatever accomplices he was trying to warn, it was too late. The house of cards was about to come down, and my perfect brother had no idea I held the winning hand. Zara's tablet pinged with an alert. She showed me the screen. Multiple attempts to access offshore accounts, all within the last 5 minutes. Game on, big brother. The cafe where I'd arranged to meet Alexis was quiet for a Saturday morning. I spotted her immediately. Brian's wife still had that perfect posture, designer handbag placed just so on the table. We hadn't really talked since she married my brother 5 years ago. Layla. She stood to hug me, her smile genuine but strained. It's been too long. Thanks for meeting me. I sat down, noting the dark circles under her makeup. How are you holding up? Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. You mean since you froze all of Brian's work accounts? He's been difficult. I can imagine. I paused as the waiter brought my cappuccino. Remember when we were roommates in college? You used to tell me everything. That was before I married your brother. Alexis looked down. Things change. Do they have to? She met my eyes then, and I saw a flicker of the old Alexis, the one who'd stay up late with me, sharing secrets and dreams. Brian's been acting strange lately. Secretive. He's been making a lot of late-night phone calls in his office. When did it start? About a year ago. He started coming home later, more stressed. Sometimes he'd wake up in the middle of the night to check his laptop. She hesitated. Last month, I found him shredding documents at 3 a.m. My heart raced. Did you see what they were? No, but... Alexis reached into her bag, hands shaking slightly. I took pictures of some papers he left in his home office. I shouldn't have, but something felt wrong. She slid her phone across the table. The photos showed spreadsheets, account numbers, and what looked like offshore banking details. Why are you showing me this? I asked quietly. Tears welled in her eyes. Because the Alexis who was your best friend would have done it years ago. Because I've spent 5 years watching Brian tear you down while building himself up on lies. She took a shuddering breath. And because last week, I found divorce papers in his desk, already signed, dated 3 months ago. My hand found hers across the table. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I think I've known for a while that something wasn't right. But Layla, she squeezed my hand. Whatever you find, whatever you do, be careful. Brian's not just angry, he's scared. And he's been making calls to some people I don't trust. The cafe door chimed, and we both jumped as Zara walked in, right on schedule. Alexis, what a surprise. Zara's performance was perfect as she pulled up a chair. I didn't know you two were meeting today. Just catching up, I said, watching Alexis carefully. Zara's been helping me adjust to running Uncle Robert's company. Alexis's eyes widened slightly at the casual mention of my new role. It must be overwhelming. It would be, except for some excellent advisors. I nodded to Zara, who pulled out her tablet. Speaking of which, Zara said, we found something interesting in the international accounts. Transfers to a company called Artemis Holdings? Ring any bells? Alexis went pale. That's the company Brian told me to register last year, in my maiden name. Zara and I exchanged looks. Did he tell you why? He said it was for tax purposes, that lots of executives do it. She pressed her hands to her face. Oh God, what did I help him do? Nothing yet, Zara assured her. The company exists, but it's clean, no transactions. He wanted me to sign some transfer papers next week, Alexis whispered. Said it was urgent. My phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Where's my wife? She's not answering her phone. He's checking up on you, I said, showing her the message. Alexis straightened her shoulders, something hardening in her expression. Let me help. Whatever you need to know, whatever evidence you're looking for, I want to help find it. It could get ugly, I warned. Brian won't forgive either of us. There's nothing left to forgive. She pulled out a USB drive. Here's everything I could copy from his home computer. Financial records, emails, contact lists. She slid it across the table. Just promise me one thing. Name it. When you take him down, because we both know that's where this is heading, make it clean. Make it permanent. No second chances. My phone buzzed again. Found you. Nice catch-up session. We all turned to the cafe window. Brian stood outside, his face dark with rage as he watched us through the glass. Alexis flinched but didn't look away. Go out the back, I told her, standing up. Zara will take you somewhere safe. What about you? I grabbed my bag, making sure the USB drive was secure. I'm going to have a chat with my brother. It's time he learned that his little sister isn't so little anymore. As Zara hustled Alexis toward the back exit, I walked to the front door, my heart pounding but my steps steady. The game had changed now. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about every person Brian had ever used and discarded. Time to show him what real power looks like. Brian grabbed my arm the moment I stepped outside the cafe. What the hell do you think you're doing? I yanked free, keeping my voice steady. Having coffee with an old friend. Problem? Don't play dumb, Layla. I saw you with my wife. His face was flushed with anger. What lies have you been telling her? Interesting choice of words, considering the divorce papers you've been hiding. That caught him off guard. His eyes narrowed. Been snooping through my personal life now? Guess Uncle Robert's money bought you some courage. No, Brian, you did that all by yourself. I started walking toward my car. Years of belittling me, making me feel worthless. You taught me exactly what kind of person you really are. He followed, his expensive shoes clicking on the pavement. Oh, please. You're still the same pathetic little girl who can't handle real responsibility. You think you can run a multinational company? You can barely run your own life. I spun to face him. Is that why you've been embezzling millions? Because you're so much more responsible? Prove it. His smile was cold. You've got nothing. I pulled out my phone, showing him a screenshot Zara had sent earlier. Wire transfer to Artemis Holdings. Authorized by you, scheduled for next week. Ring any bells? The color drained from his face. Where did you get that? I own the company, remember? Every transaction, every account, every dirty little secret, it all belongs to me now. I stepped closer. Did you really think you could hide it forever? You have no idea what you're dealing with, he snarled. I've spent years building connections you couldn't imagine. One phone call, and your precious inheritance disappears. Try it. I held up the USB drive. While you're at it, explain these records to the FBI. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your offshore accounts. His hand shot out, grabbing for the drive, but I was ready. I stepped back, watching his desperation grow. What do you want? He demanded. Money? Is that it? Name your price? I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money, it's about justice. Justice? He spat the word. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of my success, my marriage, everything I've achieved. Achieved? My voice rose. You mean stolen. From the company, from Alexis, from everyone who trusted you. Alexis? He laughed harshly. My wife knows her place. She won't say a word against me. Ex-wife, I corrected, and she already has. The mask slipped completely then. Brian's face contorted with rage as he lunged forward, but a hand caught his shoulder. Is there a problem here? Camden, my artist friend who owned the cafe, stood behind Brian. His tall frame towered over my brother. Brian shrugged off Camden's hand, straightening his jacket. Family discussion, private. Doesn't look private from where I'm standing, Camden said calmly, and my security cameras caught everything. I saw the calculation in Brian's eyes as he looked between us. This isn't over, little sister. You want to play hardball? Let's play. But remember, you started this war. No, Brian. You started it years ago. I'm just finally fighting back. He turned to leave but paused. Tell Alexis she has 24 hours to come home, or she'll regret it. Threaten her again, I said quietly. And those financial records won't be the only things the FBI receives. He stormed off, nearly knocking over a parking meter in his rage. Camden touched my arm gently. You okay? I realized I was shaking. No, but I will be. My phone buzzed with a text from Zara. Alexis is safe. Got everything on video. You should see this footage. Another message followed immediately. Emerson says Brian just tried to access the main servers. IT blocked him, but he's getting desperate. Thanks for the backup, I told Camden, showing him the messages. Think your security footage might help our case? He grinned. Already sent it to Zara. Your brother really showed his true colors today. I looked in the direction Brian had gone, thinking about the years of manipulation and abuse, about Alexis, hiding her pain behind perfect smiles, about every person he'd stepped on to climb his way up. Camden, I said, I need a favor. Can you get me in touch with that investigative reporter friend of yours? He raised an eyebrow. The one who specializes in corporate fraud? Sure, but are you ready for that kind of publicity? I thought about Brian's threats, his smug certainty that he could still control the situation. Yes, it's time everyone saw who my brother really is. My phone buzzed again. Emerson this time. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. Brian's trying to rally support against you. I smiled grimly. Tell Emerson I'll be there, with evidence. The war was on, and this time I wasn't backing down. The boardroom hummed with tension as I spread the documents across the polished table. Emerson stood at my side, pointing out key figures to the assembled board members. Brian's empty chair glared at me from the opposite end. As you can see, Emerson explained, the pattern of fraudulent transactions extends back 18 months. A board member adjusted his glasses. And you're certain these originated from Mr. Wheeler's department? More than certain. I nodded to Zara, who distributed additional folders. Page 3 shows his electronic signatures on every major transfer. The boardroom door burst open. Brian strode in, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. Sorry I'm late, he announced, not sounding sorry at all. I had to collect my legal representation. This is a closed board meeting, Emerson stated firmly. A meeting about me, without me? Brian's laugh was sharp. My lawyers advised against that. Your lawyers, I said, standing up, might want to see this first. I gestured to the screens behind me as Zara started the presentation. Security footage from multiple angles showed Brian's confrontation outside the cafe, his threats clearly audible. One of his lawyers winced. Illegal surveillance, Brian snapped. Inadmissible. Public space, Zara corrected. Perfectly legal. The boardroom door opened again. Alexis walked in, her head high, followed by 2 people I recognized from the FBI's white-collar crime division. Brian's face went chalk white. What is this? Special Agents Marcus and Rivera. One of them announced, showing his badge. We'd like to ask you some questions about Artemis Holdings. I invoke my right to counsel, Brian said quickly. Interesting response, I noted. Nobody accused you of anything yet. The board members shifted uncomfortably as the agents approached Brian. His lawyers huddled together, whispered frantically. Before this goes any further, I said, I have a proposition. Brian's eyes darted between me and the FBI agents. I'm listening. Resignation. Immediate. Full confession. Voluntary repayment of all stolen funds. I met his gaze steadily. In exchange, the company doesn't press charges. The FBI might still have questions, Agent Marcus interjected. They might, I agreed, but corporate cooperation usually helps in these situations, doesn't it? Brian's lawyer nodded slightly to him. And if I refuse? Brian challenged. Alexis stepped forward, placing a stack of papers on the table. Then I submit these to the FBI. Every transaction, every hidden account, every conversation where you detailed your plans. Her voice trembled but held firm, including the ones where you discussed having me take the fall if you were caught. The second lawyer immediately stood up. If you'll excuse us, we need to consult with our client. You have 5 minutes, I said. They hurried Brian into a corner. I could see him gesturing angrily, his face getting redder by the second. Finally, his shoulders slumped. "Fine," he spat, returning to the table. "You win. I'll sign whatever you want." Emerson slid the resignation papers across the table. "Already prepared." As Brian signed, his hand shaking with rage, I felt no triumph, only a deep sadness for what could have been. "The confession next," Agent Rivera said, producing another document. Brian's pen hesitated. "Layla, we're family." "Family." I laughed softly. "Was it family when you told our parents I was worthless? When you sabotaged my first gallery showing? When you planned to frame your own wife for your crimes? I built this company." "No," Alexis cut in. "You stole from it. There's a difference." The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and statements. When it was done, the FBI agents escorted Brian out, his lawyers trailing behind like lost puppies. "The board needs to discuss next steps," Emerson announced, gathering the documents. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. In the hallway, Alexis caught my arm. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. Where will you go now?" She smiled, looking lighter than I'd seen her in years. "Paris, maybe. Start over. Paint again." "You used to love painting." I stopped because Brian said it was childish. She hugged me tightly. "Don't let anyone dim your light again, Layla. You're stronger than I ever was." After she left, Zara appeared with coffee and a concerned look. "You okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." My phone buzzed, a message from our mother. "What have you done to your brother?" I showed it to Zara, who rolled her eyes. "Want me to handle it?" "No." I straightened my shoulders. "It's time I handled my family myself." "Ms. Wheeler?" Emerson called from the boardroom. "They're ready for you." I took a deep breath, thinking of Uncle Robert. He'd seen something in me that even I hadn't recognized. Strength, determination, integrity. "Coming," I called back. It was time to build something new from the ashes of my brother's destruction. Something honest, something real. Time to prove that the little sister with the paint-stained hands could do more than just survive. She could lead. My parents' house looked exactly the same. Pristine lawn, perfect flowers, Brian's old sports trophies still proudly displayed in the front window. I'd been avoiding this confrontation for a week, but after 30 missed calls and countless accusatory texts, I couldn't put it off any longer. Mom opened the door before I could knock. "Finally decided to show your face?" "Hello to you too, Mom." The living room was a shrine to Brian's achievements. Photos, awards, newspaper clippings. My own art degree diploma was nowhere in sight. Dad sat in his usual armchair, looking older than I remembered. "Explain yourself, young lady." "Explain what?" I settled onto the couch. How your perfect son embezzled millions? How he planned to frame his wife? Or how he threatened me in broad daylight? "Lies." Mom's voice shook. "Your brother would never—" "I have proof." I pulled out my tablet, playing the security footage. "Everything's documented. The FBI has it all." They watched in silence as Brian's threats echoed through the speakers. Mom's hand flew to her mouth when he lunged at me. "He was under stress," Dad argued weakly. "You provoked him." "By existing? Yeah, that's always been enough to provoke Brian, hasn't it?" "You're just jealous," Mom snapped. "You've always been jealous of his success." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "Success? Let me show you his kind of success." I pulled up the financial records, the offshore accounts, the documented threats against Alexis. With each new piece of evidence, their faces grew paler. "He's your brother," Mom whispered. "How could you do this to him? How could you do this to me?" I stood up, hands shaking. "For 30 years, I've watched you worship him while he tore me down. Every achievement ignored, every dream mocked. Did you know he sabotaged my first gallery showing? Paid critics to trash my work?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. "That's not true. Here's the proof." I showed them the emails we'd found. He couldn't stand the idea that I might succeed on my own merit. "But he had such potential," Mom protested. "And I didn't? Look at me, Mom. Really look. I'm running a multinational company. My art is in galleries across 3 continents. I did that despite you both, despite Brian, despite everyone who said I couldn't." The doorbell rang. Mom started to rise, but I waved her down. That'll be Alexis. Alexis? Dad frowned. Why would she? Because she's filing for divorce, and she wanted you to hear her side before Brian spins his lies. Alexis entered, looking elegant and composed. The contrast between her confidence now and her former nervous demeanor was striking. Hello, she said quietly. I thought you should know the truth. For the next hour, Alexis detailed years of manipulation, emotional abuse, and financial schemes. She showed them the divorce papers Brian had hidden, the threatening texts he'd sent after I confronted him. He was going to blame me, she finished. Set me up to take the fall for everything. Your perfect son was willing to send his wife to prison to save himself. Mom was crying silently. Dad stared at his hands. The FBI is still investigating, I added. They'll probably want to talk to you both. I wanted you to be prepared. What do we do? Mom asked, her voice small. Stop enabling him. Stop making excuses. For once in your lives, see him for what he really is. My phone buzzed. Emerson. Brian's trying to access company accounts through a back door. IT caught it. Want us to alert the FBI? Yes, I texted back. Then to my parents. He's still at it. Even now he's trying to steal more. Dad finally looked up. I don't understand. We gave him everything. That's the problem, Alexis said gently. You gave him everything, including permission to destroy anyone who got in his way. Including his own sister, I added. His own wife. Mom reached for a photo of Brian, him in his college graduation gown, beaming at the camera. Where did we go wrong? By believing he could do no wrong. I stood up. I have to go. The company needs me. But think about something. All those years you spent promoting Brian's potential, I was actually living up to mine. Alexis followed me out. In the driveway, she squeezed my hand. That was brave. Was it? I feel sick. They needed to hear it, all of it. She smiled sadly. My flight to Paris leaves tomorrow. New life, new start. Send me your art when you start painting again? Only if you promise to display it in one of your galleries. My phone buzzed again. Zara this time. FBI wants to meet. Brian's getting desperate. I hugged Alexis goodbye, watching as she drove away. Through the living room window, I could see my parents holding each other, surrounded by the wreckage of their illusions. Sometimes justice feels like breaking things. Sometimes it feels like finally being able to breathe. I got in my car, ready to face whatever desperate move Brian had planned next. The truth was out now. No more shadows. No more pretending. Time to finish what I started. The emergency board meeting was already in chaos when I arrived. Brian had somehow gotten in before me, and he was standing at the head of the table, wild-eyed and disheveled. There she is, he shouted, the artist who thinks she can run a business. Security moved to remove him, but I held up my hand. Let him speak. I want everyone to hear this. Oh, you want to hear me? Brian's laugh was unhinged. How about we hear about your complete lack of qualifications? Your failed art shows? The fact that you couldn't even sell a painting without Uncle Robert's pity? Are you done? I kept my voice steady, setting my briefcase on the table. Done? I'm just getting started. He pulled out a stack of papers. I have proof that you're unfit to run this company. Proof that Uncle Robert was mentally incompetent when he changed his will. The board members murmured uncomfortably. Emerson stepped forward. Mr. Wheeler, I advised your uncle personally. He was of sound mind. Really? Brian slapped more documents down. Then explain these medical records. I opened my briefcase calmly. You mean the forged medical records you created last night? The ones you paid Dr. Marcus to backdate? His face went white. How did you? Dr. Marcus called me this morning. He's very cooperative when faced with losing his medical license. I nodded to Zara, who started distributing folders. He provided quite detailed information about your attempt to falsify Uncle Robert's medical history. One of the board members gasped as she read the contents. Mr. Wheeler, this is criminal. It's lies, Brian snarled. All lies. Just like her paintings, worthless imitations of real art. Speaking of art, I pressed a button on my phone, and the boardroom screens lit up. Let's talk about the real reason Uncle Robert left me the company. Security footage appeared, showing Brian in one of our storage facilities, replacing original artworks with forgeries. 3 months ago, I explained, Uncle Robert discovered that Brian had been selling authentic pieces and replacing them with high-quality fakes. The profits went straight to his offshore accounts. "You can't prove that was me," Brian said quickly. "Actually, we can." Agent Marcus entered the room, followed by his FBI team. "We found your forgery supplier. He's been very informative." Brian lunged for the door, but security blocked his path. "This is a setup. She's framing me." "Like you planned to frame Alexis?" I asked quietly. The boardroom door opened again. Alexis walked in, carrying a laptop. "I think the board should hear this." She played an audio recording. Brian's voice, crystal clear. "If anything goes wrong, all evidence points to my wife. She signed everything. She'll take the fall." "That's inadmissible," Brian shouted. "She recorded me illegally." "Wrong again," Agent Marcus said. "She was already cooperating with our investigation. The recording was authorized by court order." Brian's lawyers, hovering nervously by the door, began gathering their things. "Wait," Brian called to them. "You can't leave. I'm paying you to—" "Your accounts are frozen," I interrupted. "All of them, including the hidden ones in the Cayman Islands." He slumped into a chair, the fight draining from him. "You've ruined everything." "No, Brian, you did that yourself." I turned to the board. "Ladies and gentlemen, I move to formally remove Brian Wheeler from any position within this company and its subsidiaries." "Seconded," Emerson said firmly. The vote was unanimous. As the FBI led Brian away in handcuffs, he tried one last time. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this." "Actually," said a quiet voice from the doorway, "we're here to support your sister." Our parents stood there, looking small and tired. Mom's eyes were red from crying, but her spine was straight as she watched her golden child being led away. "How could you?" Brian called to them. Dad shook his head sadly. "We've been asking ourselves the same question for days. How could you, Brian?" After Brian was gone, the board quickly approved my restructuring plan. As people filed out, Mom approached my chair. "We were wrong," she whispered, "about everything, about you." "Yes," I said simply. "You were. Can you ever forgive us?" I looked at her, then at Dad, seeing for the first time how age and regret had marked them. "I don't know, but I'm willing to try if you are." Alexis touched my shoulder. "My car's waiting. Paris awaits." I hugged her tightly. "Send me your first painting." "I will." "And Layla?" She smiled through tears. "Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." After everyone left, I stood at the boardroom window, watching the city lights come on. Zara appeared with coffee. "Quite a day, boss." "Quite a month." I took the coffee gratefully. "Did we do the right thing?" "You gave him chances. Multiple chances. He chose this ending." My phone buzzed. A message from Camden. "Gallery opening next week. Still want that wall space for your new collection?" I smiled, thinking of the paintings I'd been working on in secret. Paintings about power, truth, and redemption. "Yes," I texted back. "It's time to show the world what I can really do." The gallery hummed with conversation as people moved from piece to piece. My new collection, Shadows and Light, filled the walls, paintings that told the story of power, betrayal, and redemption without a single recognizable face. "They're beautiful," Camden said, appearing at my elbow with champagne. "Especially that one." He nodded toward the centerpiece, a massive canvas showing broken chains transforming into butterflies, the piece I'd finished the night after Brian's arrest. "Ms. Wheeler?" a young woman approached, notepad in hand. "I'm from Art Forum. Would you comment on the inspiration behind your work?" Before I could answer, my parents walked in. Mom wore a simple black dress, no designer labels, no flashy jewelry. Dad looked uncertain in his rented tuxedo. "Excuse me," I told the reporter. "Family matter." They stood before the centerpiece, studying it intently. Mom's hand trembled as she reached out, almost touching the surface. "This is what it felt like, isn't it?" she asked softly. "All those years under his shadow." "Part of it." I sipped my champagne. "The butterflies are new." "Layla," Zara called from across the room. "The buyers from Paris are here." I turned to my parents. "Duty calls." "Wait." Dad caught my arm gently. "We've been going through old boxes. Found something you should have." He pulled out a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a small, childish painting, bright colors and wobbly lines. "Your first artwork," Mom explained. "The one Brian told us he'd thrown away. He'd hidden it in his old room." I remembered that painting. Age 7, proudly showing it to my family. Brian had called it garbage. "We should have seen it then," Dad said. "How he tried to dim your light. We're so sorry, sweetheart." The Paris buyers approached before I could respond. As I discussed prices and shipping arrangements, I watched my parents move through the gallery, really seeing my work for the first time. "Quite a turnout," Emerson observed, joining me after the buyers left. "The company's art division reports record profits this quarter." "Any word from our former executive?" "Brian took a plea deal, 5 to 7 years, full restitution." He paused. "He tried to have his lawyers contact you." "For?" "A documentary crew wants to tell his side of the story. He needs your permission, given the company's involvement." I laughed softly, still trying to control the narrative. What should I tell them? Tell them the truth belongs to everyone now. He doesn't get to own it anymore. My phone buzzed. A message from Alexis with a photo attached. Her first painting in years, bright and bold against her Paris apartment wall. "Speaking of truth," Zara appeared with a tablet. "You should see these reviews coming in." The critics who had once dismissed my work as derivative were now praising its raw emotional honesty and fearless exploration of power dynamics. "Success is the best revenge," Zara grinned. "No," I corrected her. "Truth is." Camden clinked his glass for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, the artist would like to say a few words." I hadn't planned to speak, but looking around at the gathered faces, friends, family, colleagues who had become allies, I knew what needed to be said. When I was young, someone very important to me said my art was worthless. I believed him for a long time. But art, like truth, has a way of breaking free. I gestured to the paintings. These pieces aren't about revenge or justice. They're about transformation, about breaking chains we didn't know we wore. My parents moved closer, Mom wiping tears. "Someone else once told me that power isn't about control. It's about creation. About building something meaningful from the ashes of what tried to destroy you." I raised my glass. "To Uncle Robert, who saw strength where others saw weakness, and to everyone who's ever felt shadowed, your light matters." After the speeches and sales, after the critics and collectors left, I found myself alone in the gallery. The centerpiece seemed to glow in the dim light, those broken chains catching the shadows just right. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "Congratulations. You won. Hope you're happy. B." I didn't respond. Instead, I took a photo of the centerpiece and sent it to Alexis with the caption, "We both broke free." Her reply came instantly. "No more shadows, only light ahead." I touched the small childhood painting my parents had returned, now hanging in a quiet corner. The colors were still bright, the joy still visible in every messy brushstroke. That little girl had been right all along. Art wasn't about perfection or power or praise. It was about truth, about light, about breaking free. And finally, after all these years, I was flying.
The doorbell rang at exactly 8:47 a.m. on a Sunday, the kind of precise timing that could only mean bad news. I knew it was Quentin before I even opened the door. After 15 years of marriage, you develop a sixth sense for incoming storms. I'm Willow, and this is the story of how I turned my ex-husband's greed into his worst nightmare. "We need to talk about the house," Quentin said, brushing past me into the foyer, without waiting for an invitation. The morning sun caught his expensive new watch, probably a gift from Avery, his 20-something fiancé. "There's nothing to talk about." I crossed my arms, staying by the door. The divorce settlement was clear. "The house is mine." He ran his fingers along the kitchen counter, the same granite we'd picked out together years ago. "Things change, Willow. I've been talking to my lawyer." My stomach dropped. When Quentin started sentences with "my lawyer," it usually meant trouble, big trouble. "I helped build this place," he continued, his voice taking on that smooth, practiced tone he used in court. "I'm entitled to half its current value, and given the market." He smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "That's quite a sum." "You're joking." But I knew he wasn't. This was classic Quentin, waiting until the property value skyrocketed before making his move. "I invested just as much as you did," he said, walking into the living room like he still owned the place. "Remember those 60-hour weeks I pulled to afford the custom cabinets you wanted? Remember the affair you had with your paralegal while I was picking out those cabinets?" The words shot out before I could stop them. His jaw tightened. "Ancient history, Willow. I'm here to discuss business." My phone buzzed. A text from Vada. "Still on for brunch?" I ignored it. "Get out," I said quietly. "You have two options." He pulled out an envelope, setting it on the coffee table. "You can either buy me out at fair market value, or we can force a sale and split the proceeds. My lawyer's details are inside." "The judge awarded me the house, Quentin. It's done." He laughed, that condescending chuckle that used to make me feel 2 inches tall. "There's always a loophole, honey. You should know that by now. I've found one, and I'm exercising my rights." The fury building inside me must have shown on my face because he took a step back. "Don't make this ugly, Willow. Just sell the house. We'll both walk away with a nice profit." "This is my home," I said, my voice shaking. "I rebuilt my life here after you left. I painted every room. I planted that garden. I made this place mine. And now it's time to cash out." He headed for the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, my lawyer files the paperwork." The door clicked shut behind him, and I sank onto the stairs, my legs suddenly weak. Through the window, I watched him climb into his shiny new Tesla, another toy probably funded by Avery's family money. My phone buzzed again. "Vada." "Hello? Earth to Willow?" I picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a formal letter from his lawyer, outlining his claim to the property. The numbers made my head spin. "Change of plans," I texted Vada. "Need to see you ASAP. Emergency." Her response was immediate. "On my way, wine or whiskey?" "Both," I replied. I walked through my house, touching the walls, the door frames, the windowsills. Every inch held memories. The kitchen where I'd learned to make pasta from scratch during those lonely post-divorce months. The living room where I'd hosted my first newly single Christmas. The garden that had become my therapy. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my sister Michaela. "Just saw Q's car leaving your street. You okay?" I stared at the message, an idea starting to form. Quentin wanted to talk about the house's value? Fine, let's talk about value. Let's show everyone exactly what kind of man was trying to take my home. "I'm okay," I texted back. "Actually, I'm thinking of having an open house next weekend. Think you could help spread the word?" The response came quickly. "Open house? Are you selling?" "No," I typed, a smile spreading across my face for the first time that morning. "Just showing off some of the house's features. Trust me." The doorbell rang again. Vada, holding 2 bottles, and wearing her "who do I need to help you bury" expression. It was time to make a plan. "So you want to host an open house? Just to humiliate your ex?" Vada raised an eyebrow, pouring her 3rd glass of wine. We'd moved to the back porch, where the evening air carried the scent of my blooming gardenias. "Not just to humiliate him," I said, pulling up a local realtor's number on my phone. "To show everyone exactly who he is, including his fiancée." "You're evil," Vada grinned. "I love it. But how exactly is an open house going to accomplish that?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. "Isaac Warren, real estate extraordinaire," a cheerful voice announced. "How can I help you today?" I put the phone on speaker. "Isaac, it's Willow. Remember that house you helped me decorate last year? The colonial with the killer kitchen? How could I forget? Please tell me you're not selling. That place is your masterpiece." "Not selling, but I need your help with something unconventional." I explained Quentin's demands and my plan for the open house. There was a long pause. "Let me get this straight," Isaac said slowly. "You want to host a fake open house, invite the whole neighborhood, including your ex's new fiancé, just to expose him as a greedy bastard?" "Basically." "Girl," I could hear the smile in his voice. I have waited my entire real estate career for something this deliciously dramatic. I'm in. Vada clapped her hands. See? Even the professionals approve. Meet me for coffee tomorrow, Isaac continued. I've got some ideas that'll make this the most memorable open house in suburban history. The next morning, I found Isaac at our local coffee shop, surrounded by papers and typing furiously on his laptop. He looked up as I approached, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Okay, here's what we know, he said as I sat down. Your ex is money-hungry, image-obsessed, and probably hasn't told his new fiancée the whole truth about your history. Definitely hasn't, I confirmed. Michaela ran into Avery at the gym last month. Apparently, Quentin told her he let me keep the house out of kindness. Isaac snorted. Kindness? After what he did? He pulled out a folder. I did some digging. Your house's value has increased by 60% since your divorce. No wonder he's circling like a vulture. Can he really claim half? I asked, the question that had been keeping me up all night. He can try, Isaac said, sliding a business card across the table. But I have a friend who specializes in property law. She says his case is weak, especially given the clear divorce settlement. This is about intimidation, not law. My phone lit up with a text from Michaela. Called everyone I know. They're all coming Saturday. This better be good. It will be, I muttered. Here's my plan. Isaac leaned forward, lowering his voice. We stage the house like a normal open house, but we'll strategically place photos and documents that tell the real story. The renovation receipts you paid for alone will raise eyebrows. And the credit card statements showing his affair? I asked, pulling out my own folder. The ones he doesn't know I kept? Isaac's eyes widened. You beautiful, prepared woman. Yes, those too. We'll make it subtle. Just enough information scattered around that people can piece it together themselves. Vada's handling the guest list, I said, scrolling through my messages. She's invited half the country club, including Avery's parents. Perfect. Isaac started typing again. I'll create a proper listing presentation, complete with the house's history, including the original ownership documents and... He paused for effect. The divorce settlement he signed. My hands shook slightly as I sipped my coffee. What if this backfires? What if I look like the bitter ex-wife? Isaac reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Honey, you're not bitter. You're protecting what's yours. There's a difference. Besides, he winked, I've seen enough real estate drama to know karma always finds a way. Speaking of karma, I pulled up my email. Quentin just sent another threat. Says if I don't respond by tomorrow, he's filing the paperwork. Perfect timing, Isaac said. Let him file. By Saturday evening, he'll wish he'd never set foot in that house again. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from my brother Benson. Are you sure about this? Maybe we should talk first. Your brother? Isaac asked, noting my frown. Yeah. He thinks I should just sell and avoid the drama. And what do you think? I looked around the coffee shop, remembering all the mornings I'd spent here after Quentin left, planning my new life. I think it's time to stop running from drama and start directing it. Isaac raised his coffee cup. To the best open house ever. To karma, I replied, clinking my cup against his. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. This is a terrible idea, Benson declared, pacing my kitchen Thursday night. You're going to start a war. A war? Michaela snorted from her perch on the counter. Quentin started the war when he tried to steal her house. I continued arranging photos on the dining room table, carefully selected memories from happier times, strategically placed next to bank statements and renovation receipts. He's not stealing anything, Benson argued. He's exercising his legal rights. Legal rights? I spun around. He signed away those rights in the divorce settlement. You were there, Benson. You saw what he did to me. And you got the house, he countered. Maybe it's time to sell, move on, start fresh somewhere new. Michaela jumped down from the counter. Are you seriously defending him right now? I'm trying to protect our sister from making a huge mistake, Benson's voice rose. You think Quentin's just going to take this public humiliation lying down? He's a lawyer, for God's sake. A lawyer who cheated on his wife while she was building his dream home? Michaela shot back. He deserves whatever's coming. The doorbell rang, interrupting their argument. Isaac walked in carrying a professional-looking presentation board and several folders. Family meeting? He asked, noting the tension. Family disagreement, I corrected. Benson thinks we should call this off. Isaac set down his materials. Because of legal concerns? Because it's childish, Benson said, and potentially dangerous. Quentin has connections. Quentin has an inflated ego and a weak legal case, Isaac interrupted, pulling out some papers. I had my lawyer friend review everything. The divorce settlement is ironclad. This isn't about law, it's about intimidation. See? Michaela gestured triumphantly. Even the professionals think Quentin's full of language, Benson warned, ever the big brother. I was going to say baloney, Michaela said innocently. My phone buzzed. Another email from Quentin's lawyer. I deleted it without reading. Look, Benson sat down at the kitchen island, his voice softening. I get it. What Quentin did was awful. But this plan, it's beneath you, Willow. No, I said quietly. What's beneath me is letting him bully me out of my home. Again. The room fell silent. We all remembered those first few weeks after discovering the affair, how Quentin had convinced me to stay at Benson's while we worked things out. By the time I realized he was just buying time to empty our accounts, it was almost too late. You didn't see her then, Michaela told Isaac. She was a shell. Quentin had her convinced everything was her fault. I remember, Benson admitted. But you're stronger now. You don't need revenge. This isn't about revenge, I said, straightening the photos on the table. It's about truth. Quentin's built this whole new life on lies. Avery deserves to know who she's really marrying. And the whole neighborhood needs to witness it? Benson asked. The whole neighborhood watched me fall apart, I replied. They can watch this too. Isaac cleared his throat. If it helps, I've done this before. Had a client whose ex tried something similar. Once everything was out in the open, he backed off completely. Sometimes sunlight really is the best disinfectant. My phone lit up with a text from Vada. RSVPs rolling in. Avery's parents confirmed. You ready for this? See? Michaela pointed at my phone. It's meant to be. The universe wants Quentin exposed. Benson stood up, shaking his head. I can't support this, but... He hesitated at the door. I'll be there, in case things go sideways. After he left, Michaela hugged me tight. He'll come around. You know how he gets. Always trying to protect everyone. Speaking of protection, Isaac pulled out a business card. I hired security for Saturday, just in case Quentin loses his cool. I stared at the dining room table, at the carefully arranged evidence of my ex-husband's betrayal. Do you think Benson's right? Am I making a huge mistake? No, Michaela said firmly. You're standing up for yourself. Finally. Besides, Isaac added, arranging his presentation materials, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's doing it with style. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown number. Avery. Looking forward to seeing your beautiful home on Saturday. Quentin's told me so much about it. I showed the message to Michaela and Isaac. Oh, honey, Michaela grinned. You have no idea what you're walking into. Save that text, Isaac advised. It'll make a nice addition to our display. Looking around my kitchen, at the evidence of my past, the support of my present, and the promise of justice to come, I finally felt ready. Saturday would change everything. Saturday arrived with perfect open house weather, sunny with a chance of karma. Isaac had transformed my home into a real estate showcase, complete with professional photos and property details mounted on elegant displays. The doorbell rang at exactly 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the official start time. Avery, I said, opening the door to find my ex-husband's fiancé standing there in a sundress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. You're early. I hope that's okay. She stepped inside, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floors. I just couldn't wait to see the house Quentin designed. He talks about it constantly. Behind her, Vada, who'd been arranging refreshments in the kitchen, nearly dropped a tray of cookies. Quentin designed? I kept my voice neutral. How interesting. What exactly did he tell you about the house? Oh, everything, Avery gushed, running her hand along the kitchen island. How he picked out all the finishes, managed the contractors. He said building this house was his passion project. Veda made a choking sound that she quickly turned into a cough. Did he mention who picked out these countertops? I asked, watching her closely. He did. He said he spent weeks researching the perfect granite. Something about the veining pattern being unique? She smiled brightly. He has such an eye for detail. I caught Vada's eye. She was gripping the counter so hard her knuckles were white. Would you like to see the renovation receipts? I offered casually. I keep excellent records. Oh, I'd love to. Avery followed me to the dining room, where our carefully arranged displays waited. Quentin mentioned you helped with some of the decorating. Some of the... Vada muttered under her breath, but the doorbell rang again before she could finish. People started flowing in. Neighbors, friends, even some of Quentin's old colleagues. Isaac played the perfect host, directing traffic and pointing out the house's unique features, including the strategically placed documents. Oh my, I heard someone say near the renovation timeline display. Look at these dates. Avery was still studying the receipts, her perfectly maintained smile starting to slip. I don't understand. These are all in your name. Yes, I said simply. They are. But Quentin said... She trailed off, her eyes catching on a framed photo nearby. Me, covered in paint, renovating what would become the master bathroom. The date stamp was clear, 3 months after Quentin had moved out. The doorbell chimed again. This time, it was Avery's parents. Mom! Dad! She waved them over, but her voice had lost some of its enthusiasm. Come see the house, Quentin. The house he what, dear? Her mother asked, picking up one of Isaac's property information packets. Before Avery could answer, a murmur went through the growing crowd. I turned to see Michaela leading a group of guests through the kitchen, pointing out features with theatrical flair. And this custom backsplash? She was saying. My sister picked it out the same week she discovered the affair. Talk about retail therapy. Michaela! Benson appeared from nowhere, trying to shush her. But the damage was done. Avery's face went pale. Affair? Oh, you didn't know. Michaela's voice carried clearly across the room. It's all documented in the divorce papers. They're on display in the study, along with the credit card statements. Very educational reading. Avery's mother was already moving toward the study, her social smile replaced with something sharper. There must be some mistake, Avery said, but she was staring at the renovation receipts with new eyes. Quentin told me you two just grew apart. Would you like to see the security footage? I asked quietly. From the day I caught him with his paralegal in our bedroom? The room had grown unusually quiet. Even Isaac had stopped his real estate spiel to watch the scene unfold. I saved that footage, I continued, along with every receipt, every document, every piece of evidence showing exactly who built this house and who betrayed it. Avery's father was now reading the divorce settlement, his jaw tightening with each page. He's trying to take it from you? Avery whispered. After everything? He filed the paperwork yesterday, I confirmed, demanding half the current value. But these receipts, she gestured at the dining room table, they're all after he left, after he drained our joint accounts and moved in with Jessica, I supplied. Yes, every renovation, every improvement, every mortgage payment, all mine. The doorbell rang again. Through the window, I could see Quentin's Tesla pulling into the driveway. Perfect timing, Isaac murmured, adjusting his realtor name tag. Avery looked from the front door to the documents in her hands, then back to me. I think, she said slowly. I need to see those security tapes. Of course, I smiled. They're playing on a loop in the master bedroom, right next to the credit card statements showing where he took Jessica on their little business trips. As Avery headed upstairs with her mother, the front door opened. Quentin stepped into his perfectly orchestrated nightmare, completely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to crumble. The real show was about to begin. What the hell is this? Quentin froze in the doorway, taking in the crowd of familiar faces. His confident smile faltered when he spotted Isaac's real estate signs. Welcome to our open house. Isaac stepped forward, professional smile firmly in place. Please, feel free to look around. We have some fascinating historical documents on display. Where's Avery? Quentin demanded, scanning the room. Her car's outside. Upstairs, Michaela chirped, watching some very interesting home videos. The security camera footage is particularly gripping. The color drained from Quentin's face. Willow, he growled, pushing through the crowd toward me. What have you done? Just showing off the house, I said sweetly. You know, the one you claim to have designed? A nearby group of neighbors turned to stare, recognition dawning on their faces. These were the same people who'd brought me casseroles after Quentin left, who'd watched me rebuild my life brick by brick. This is completely inappropriate, Quentin hissed, grabbing my arm. We need to talk, now. Take your hands off her. Benson materialized beside us, his voice low and dangerous. The security guard Isaac hired also stepped closer. Quentin released me, straightening his designer jacket. This is a private matter. Nothing's private anymore, Vada called out, waving a stack of papers. Hey, everyone, who wants to see the original divorce settlement? The one where he signed away all rights to the house? That document is confidential. Quentin's lawyer voice was slipping, revealing the panic underneath. Actually, Isaac interjected, divorce settlements are public record. Speaking of records, he gestured to the dining room. We have quite the collection of renovation receipts, all in Willow's name, interestingly enough. The crowd was growing larger, people drawn to the unfolding drama like moths to flame. I spotted several of Quentin's country club friends whispering among themselves. You can't do this, Quentin said, but his voice had lost its authority. This is harassment. Quentin? Avery's voice cut through the murmurs. She stood at the top of the stairs, her mother beside her, both women's faces rigid with anger. We need to talk. Honey, whatever she's told you. She didn't tell me anything, Avery interrupted, descending the stairs. You did. Through your lies. She held up her phone, showing a paused video. Would you like to explain why there's footage of you and Jessica in this house, dated 3 days before our first date? The room fell silent. Someone in the back whispered, Oh, snap! That's not... I can explain. Quentin looked around wildly, finally spotting Avery's father emerging from the study, divorce papers in hand. Young man, Avery's father said, his voice carrying the weight of old money and influence. I believe we need to discuss the prenuptial agreement my lawyer drew up, specifically the morality clause. Sir, this is all a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Avery's mother cut in, is that we believed you were a man of integrity. Quentin spun toward me, his composed facade cracking completely. You planned this. You orchestrated this whole thing just to destroy me. No, Quentin, I said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I'm just providing the evidence. Evidence of what? He sneered. That you're a bitter ex-wife who can't move on? Evidence that you're trying to steal my house, I corrected. Again. But this time, everyone knows the truth. How you drained our accounts, how you lied about building this place, how you're trying to profit from my hard work. A flash went off. Someone was recording on their phone. Quentin's eyes darted around the room, finally registering the hostile faces surrounding him. This isn't over, he threatened, backing toward the door. Oh, it is, Avery said. She pulled off her engagement ring and dropped it into his jacket pocket. By the way, my father's firm will be very interested in how you handle client accounts, given your history with joint finances. The crowd parted as Quentin stumbled backward, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. He yanked open the front door, nearly running into the local news reporter Michaela had invited. "Mr. Rodriguez," the reporter called out. "Care to comment on the property dispute?" The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Through them, we watched Quentin practically sprint to his Tesla. "Well," Isaac said into the silence that followed, "I believe that concludes our formal presentation. The refreshment table is in the kitchen, and all displays will remain up for another hour." As the crowd broke into excited chatter, Avery approached me. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "I had no idea." "Neither did I at first," I replied. "But now you do, that's what matters." She nodded, then managed a small smile. "Beautiful house, by the way. You did an amazing job with it." As she left with her parents, Vada appeared at my side. "Think he'll still try to claim half?" I watched Quentin's car speed away, taking his threats and lies with it. Somehow, I doubt it. The house seemed to settle around us, as if finally shrugging off the last traces of its painful past. This was my home, and now everyone knew it. The aftermath of Quentin's exit was anything but quiet. My house had transformed into a buzzing hive of gossip and revelations, with clusters of people huddled around each display of evidence. "Did you see his face when Avery mentioned the security footage?" A woman in tennis whites whispered loudly to her friend. "Priceless!" Isaac was in his element, guiding groups through the house like a museum curator. "And here," he gestured to the kitchen, "is where Willow installed the custom cabinetry, after completely refinancing the house in her name alone." My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in from people who couldn't make it, demanding details. The local community Facebook group was already lighting up with snippets of what had happened. "You might want to see this," Michaela said, holding up her phone. On the screen was a post from Jessica, Quentin's former paralegal. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. He lied to me too." Before I could respond, the front door burst open again. Quentin had returned, but this time he wasn't alone. His lawyer, Marcus, followed him in, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "This ends now," Quentin announced, his voice shaking with rage. "Marcus, show her the injunction." Marcus cleared his throat. "Actually, Quentin, given what I've just witnessed." "Show her." "I'm withdrawing as your counsel," Marcus said firmly, "and I strongly advise you to leave." The crowd pressed closer, phones raised. Someone was definitely live streaming this. "You can't withdraw," Quentin sputtered. "We have a solid case." "We had a case based on your version of events," Marcus corrected. "These documents tell a very different story." He turned to me. "Mrs. Holmes, I apologize for any distress my office may have caused you." "This is ridiculous," Quentin shouted. "She orchestrated this whole circus to humiliate me." "No," Avery's father stepped forward. "You humiliated yourself, and now you're making it worse." "Sir, please." Quentin's tone changed instantly, becoming pleading. "We can discuss this." "There's nothing to discuss." Avery appeared beside her father. "Except perhaps with the Bar Association. I wonder what they'd think about an attorney who files false claims." The security guard moved closer to Quentin, who was starting to look trapped. "You think this makes you the victim?" He turned to me, desperation in his eyes. "You think this little show proves anything?" "It proves everything," I said quietly. "Every receipt, every document, every video shows exactly who you are, and now everyone knows." "I built this house." "No," I cut him off. "You destroyed our marriage in this house. I rebuilt it, alone, and I have the papers to prove it. Papers that will hold up beautifully in court," Isaac added cheerfully. "Should you decide to pursue your claim." Quentin looked around wildly, finally seeing what he'd walked into. A room full of witnesses, documentation of his lies, and several recording phones. "You'll regret this," he threatened, but his voice cracked. "The only regret," Benson spoke up, "would be letting you take one more thing from my sister." "Quentin," Marcus said firmly, "we're leaving, now." But Quentin wasn't done. In a last, desperate move, he grabbed one of the display boards, sending documents scattering across the floor. The security guard moved instantly, but not before Vada stepped forward, her wine glass tipping, accidentally, onto Quentin's expensive suit. "Oops," she said sweetly. "Red wine is such a nightmare to get out. Almost as bad as lipstick on collar shirts, right?" The reference to his affair wasn't lost on anyone. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. "This isn't over," Quentin said again, but this time no one was listening. Marcus practically dragged him toward the door. "If you say one more word, I'll report you to the bar myself." As they left, I heard Marcus mutter, "You're lucky if she doesn't sue you for harassment." The door closed behind them, and for a moment there was complete silence. Then someone started clapping. The applause spread through the room, punctuated by cheers and whistles. I felt hands patting my back, heard voices offering support and congratulations. "Well," Isaac said, straightening his name tag, "I believe that's what we call a successful showing." "Very successful," Avery's father agreed, "though I suspect my daughter's wedding plans might need some adjusting." "Dad!" Avery rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I think I dodged a bullet." My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. "Withdrawal papers filed. Claim against property withdrawn. My sincere apologies." I showed the message to Vada, who raised her nearly empty wine glass. "To Karma!" "To Karma!" the room echoed. As the crowd began to thin, I looked around my house, my undisputed, fully mine house, and felt the last weight of Quentin's threats lift from my shoulders. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served with wine, witnesses, and irrefutable evidence. The sun was setting by the time the last guests left, casting long shadows across my victory battlefield. Empty wine glasses and scattered documents told the story of the afternoon's drama. "I can't believe you actually pulled it off," Benson said, helping me collect the evidence displays. "I really thought this would backfire." "Have a little faith in your sister," Michaela called from the kitchen, where she was loading the dishwasher. "Though I have to admit, the wine stain was a nice touch, Vada." "Pure instinct," Vada grinned, scrolling through her phone. "Oh my God, you guys need to see the community Facebook page. Someone posted the whole thing. The comments are savage." My phone rang. Isaac's name flashing on the screen. "You'll never guess who just called me," he said without preamble. "Avery's father. He wants to list their country club property. Says he prefers working with agents who have, quote, a strong moral compass." "Karma keeps on giving," Vada whispered loudly. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Jessica, Quentin's former paralegal, looking nervous and clutching a manila envelope. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see," she said quickly, "but I have something you should have." She thrust the envelope at me. "It's everything. Emails, messages, documents from when? From that time, in case he tries anything else." Benson moved protectively closer. "Why are you doing this?" Jessica wrapped her arms around herself. "Because he did the same thing to me. Made promises, told lies. I was young and stupid, and by the time I figured it out," she shook her head, "let's just say you're not the only one he tried to manipulate financially." "Come in," I said, surprising everyone, including myself. "We have leftover wine." 20 minutes later, Jessica was sitting at my kitchen island, adding her own documents to our collection. "Look at these dates," Michaela said, spreading out papers. "He was playing the same game with the firm's junior partners." 3 of them quit because of him, Jessica confirmed, but no one could prove anything. He's very careful with official records. "Was careful," Vada corrected, holding up her phone. "This video of him threatening Willow today has over 10,000 views already." My phone buzzed with a text from Avery. "Having dinner with my parents. Dad's already called his golf buddies about Quentin. Let's just say his social calendar is about to get very empty." "The country club crowd can be brutal," Jessica nodded. "Once you're out, you're out." "Speaking of out," Benson picked up one of Jessica's documents. "These expense reports. Is this what I think it is?" Jessica smiled grimly. "Creative accounting?" "Yes. I kept copies of everything after he tried to pin some financial discrepancies on me. Does the firm know? I asked. They will now. She pulled out her phone, showing us an email draft. I'm sending this to the managing partners tonight, with copies of everything. Vada raised her glass. Hell hath no fury like multiple women scorned. The doorbell rang yet again. This time it was a delivery. A massive bouquet of flowers from Isaac, with a card reading, Congratulations on the successful showing. P.S. 3 neighbors already called about listing their homes. You're a real estate legend. So what happens now? Benson asked, helping me find a vase for the flowers. Now? I looked around my kitchen, at the evidence of Quentin's deceptions spread across the counter, at the friends who'd helped me expose them. Now I finish the bathroom renovation I've been planning. Maybe paint the guest room. That's it? Michaela looked disappointed. No more drama? I think we've had enough drama, I said. But then my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Marcus, Quentin's now former lawyer. FYI, he's being called to a firm meeting tomorrow morning. Thought you should know your open house had some unexpected professional consequences. I showed the message to Jessica, who immediately fired off her email to the partners. Perfect timing, she said, standing up. Thank you, by the way, for letting me be part of this. It feels liberating, Vada suggested. Exactly. After Jessica left, carrying copies of our evidence, just in case, Benson pulled me aside. I'm sorry I doubted you, he said quietly. You were right. Some things need to be brought into the light. Speaking of light, Michaela interrupted, wait until you see what's trending on Twitter. We gathered around her phone, watching as clips of Quentin's meltdown circulated with hashtags like Yo Karma Open House and Revenge Renovation. You know what this means? Vada said, refilling our glasses one last time. You're not just keeping your house. You've made sure he can never try this with anyone else. Looking around my kitchen, at the evidence of justice served, at the flowers celebrating victory, at the faces of those who stood by me, I felt something settle into place. This house wasn't just mine anymore. It was a symbol of standing up to bullies, of exposing lies, of women supporting women. And somewhere across town, Quentin was learning that karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes it holds an open house. The morning sun streamed through my kitchen windows, catching the fresh paint on the walls. I sipped my coffee, scrolling through emails when the doorbell rang. Special delivery, Isaac announced, waving a newspaper. You made the lifestyle section. The headline read, Local Open House Exposes More Than Just Real Estate. Below was a photo of my home, looking stately and innocent, belying the drama it had witnessed. Page 3 is better, Isaac said, flipping the paper. Law firm announces partnership changes. I scanned the article. Quentin's name featured prominently, along with words like administrative leave and internal investigation. Karma's working overtime, Vada said, letting herself in through the back door. Did you see the country club newsletter? They're reviewing membership standards. My phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. Partners meeting just ended. He's out. They're auditing everything. Good morning, Michaela burst in, carrying paint samples. Ready to finally tackle that guest room? I'm thinking bold colors. Something that screams victory. The doorbell chimed again. This time it was Avery, looking polished despite everything. I hope it's okay that I stopped by, she said, holding a gift bag. I wanted to return something. Inside the bag was a familiar-looking granite sample, the one Quentin had claimed he picked out. Found this in his office, Avery explained, along with some other things that probably belong to you. Keep it, I said. Consider it a warning label for future relationships. She laughed. A real laugh, not the society giggle I'd heard at the open house. Oh, I've learned my lesson. Actually, that's partly why I'm here. Dad's hosting a charity event next month. It's for a women's shelter that helps victims of financial abuse. We'd love it if you'd speak. Me? You stood up to him, Avery said simply. You exposed the truth. Do you know how many women have reached out to me since the video went viral? They all have similar stories. Speaking of stories, Isaac interrupted, checking his phone. The real estate board wants you to know that your house's value just increased another 10%. Apparently, infamy is good for property values. The doorbell rang yet again. Benson walked in, carrying coffee for everyone. "Guess who I just saw at the courthouse?" he asked, distributing cups. Quentin, looking very unlawyer-like, being served with papers. Apparently, the firm's junior partners are filing a class action. Jessica's evidence really opened the floodgates, Vada noted, pulling up more news on her phone. "It wasn't just her evidence," I said. "It was everyone. All of us standing together, sharing our stories, exposing the truth." Speaking of sharing, Michaela held up the paint samples. "We really need to decide on these colors." Actually, I looked around my kitchen at the people who'd helped me reclaim not just my house, but my power. "I have a better idea." I grabbed a piece of paper and started sketching. "What if we turned the guest room into a home office? I could use it to help other women navigate their own legal battles." "Perfect," Avery exclaimed. "Dad knows some excellent attorneys who'd love to help. And I know some real estate agents who specialize in fresh starts," Isaac added. "Count me in," Jessica texted back when I shared the idea. "I've got plenty of documentation experience." "This is better than revenge," Vada declared. "This is revolution." My phone lit up with another message, from Quentin's number. Everyone froze as I opened it. "I'm sorry," it read simply. "Wow," Michaela breathed. "Never thought I'd see that." I deleted the message without responding. Some apologies come too late, and some bridges are better left burned. "So," I picked up a paint sample, "who's ready to help me create something new?" Everyone raised their coffee cups. "To new beginnings," Avery said. "To karma," Vada added. "To truth," Benson contributed. "To all of the above," I finished, looking around my kitchen, no longer just a room where I'd rebuilt my life, but a place where I could help others rebuild theirs. The morning sun caught the granite countertop, making the veining shimmer. I remembered standing here years ago, picking out this exact pattern, believing I was building a dream with someone who shared it. Instead, I'd built something better, a fortress of truth, a beacon for others, and a home that was unquestionably, irrevocably mine. "First things first," Michaela said, spreading out the paint samples. "Every revolution needs the right color scheme." As my friends debated paint colors and office layouts, I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth or serving karma. Sometimes it's building something new from the ashes of what was lost. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get to help others do the same.